So that was, the best of my knowledge, what happened at the meeting I was unable to make this year. With that, on our next meeting, we had a bit of follow-up on the renewable energy discussions. We had talked to a solar company, Bow, about doing a study on one of the schools on and exactly how going solar at something like a high school would work, how much land it would take, how much area. We did give them the direction that, like, stay off the roofs, but look at, other pieces of property, or how much space would it need to accomplish this. And what they came back with, and they did it a little bit on short notice. I have to say they weren't 100% prepared. The presenter wasn't able to make it, so we had a virtual presenter out of Pennsylvania talking to us. What it came down to is it was almost like 15 acres of land that these solar panels would take up to produce enough electricity for something like a high school. That's quite a bit of land, quite a bit of real estate that's not available and not necessarily desirable to be purchased. It comes with a hefty price tag, and that when you look at the payback period on the cheapest, most common system is laying a panel on a rack on the ground. And, there is, a payback period that makes it cost effective in the long run. But when you have to buy that land, it's not cost effective. Or when you have to build structures to hold it above parking, again, not cost effective. We had a good bit of discussion within the committee about, how to go forward with this. And I believe the direction at the end of the day was really more focused on how to utilize land that's available, realizing we're not trying to necessarily get a school to net zero. We're not trying to take all the energy bill, but if you have, an extra half acre or an acre on a piece of property that's underutilized, well, taking 5% out of the energy bill may make some sense. It's not all or nothing type of science, and anything you can do to take a little bit of bite out may be a good cause. And we're working with the district on selecting some school sites that may have a little bit of land available, at least until, they put an addition out there. Whatever, may come along down the line that would affect, the use of that land. But, if you have an extra acre, a half an acre, how much of the energy consumption of the school could that possibly take? And, high school might not be the best example. There's a lot of energy-intensive uses in high schools. Elementary schools they're smaller sites. They may have a little bit more land available, a little less energy-intensive. So we've tasked some of the district staff to find really an appropriate site and say, hey, look, this one has a little bit of land. If we filled it up with panels, how much are we talking about? What's the payback on that? And where can we, look at a reduction in energy costs? So they're going to come back to us next year with that regard. So we've tasked them with that. They're on it. They're good with that. And we'll move forward in that direction. So with that, we actually concluded our year. We're off for the summer. And we'll be back at it in September, pending board approval, of course. And with that, are there any questions?
Board members, Ms. Morgan.
So I just want to comment what a pleasure it's been to work with this group for the last 2 years, because they have really moved from sort of, and I don't want this to sound critical, but when I first served on construction advisory quite a while ago, it was a very passive group. That basically, the administration told them what was going on, and we left it at that. Now the group has become very focused on what is it that we can do for the district to support the school district in terms of, construction costs, renovation, that kind of thing. And they have been really hyper-focused on solar, and we've all learned a lot. It's easy to talk about solar, but then there are cons, and there is the return on investment. And so it's been a great educational walk for this committee, and I'm grateful for the work they're doing, and I look forward to hearing reports about what you guys do next year. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Any other comments? Thank you, Mr. Richards. We appreciate being here. Okay, next on the list is Curriculum Advisory. And I see Ms. Houchin coming up.
Good afternoon. Mr. Whitlock sends his apologies, had a last-minute scheduling conflict. So in March, toward the end of March, we met and they received an update on the math textbook adoption. The committee voted to approve the math textbook adoption process as is for the year. They did offer a really good suggestion. We thought they said that we should broaden our student representation so that we include English language learner students and students who struggle with that subject area, so that they could help determine whether the supports for them are strong enough in each of the resources. So that was definitely a great suggestion. Ms. Giovanelli gave insight on the new legislation regarding board term limits and requiring media specialists in our schools. They asked for 2 topics at the next meeting. They wanted to brainstorm on how to get more community members involved in the textbook adoption process, and they wanted to know more about summer learning opportunities. So in April, we met to meet those goals. We did not have enough of a quorum to have like a formal meeting, but they still wanted the information, so we proceeded with like an informational meeting. So Ms. Greneveld shared information about our summer learning opportunities that the district was providing for this year. Christine showed, she did kind of a Q&A on House Bill 1557 for them. Ms. Giovanelli asked for an update on the state's removal of publishers because that took place in between those 2 meetings for the math textbook adoption. So we gave her an update on which of our courses that impacted and how we were following, because they would appeal and or revise, and then some of them would get back on. So we gave them an update on how we were following that. And then they met to discuss ways on how they can attract more community members for future textbook adoptions. And that concluded our meetings for the year.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gittens.
Okay, first of all, thank you for your committee's hard work during the year. We appreciate it. And one of the sessions that I attended and a couple of other board members at the FSBA conference was a Q&A with Florida Department of Education, and one of the hot topics was the textbook adoption. And the question that I asked was, why can't we have a simplistic, like bulleted list of the process that we go through? Because so many people are under the impression that we, sitting up here, have chosen that awful math book that they don't want. And there is a whole process.
There is.
And the fact that we have to, that you guys, when you do yours, you have to select it from the list that has been vetted by DOE, that names the companies and the books and all that have been vetted. So my question is, how difficult is it to have just a simple, this is how textbooks are adopted, and
So-
not pages, but just a couple of bullet points to say.
We do have a process document, but we could possibly do like a graphic organizer that kind of does step 1, step 2, step 3. That we could put out, because we have the whole timeline on our district website and everything, and so maybe we can include that graphic and maybe even do a quick informational video that they could click on as well, so we can
And
add
may
to
I
that.
ask the superintendent then, can we ask the superintendent to direct them to do that type of information so that we can know simplistically as possible what the process is?
Madam Chair, Board Member Gittens, that process would be easy to complete in terms of putting together for you to confirm the question, a sort of one-sheeter, step-by-step checklist of how it, from the moment we know we need to adopt a textbook through the actual adoption and the official action of the board.
And when it comes to us, and that actually, the only thing we do is after it's all been vetted and everything, we as a board are the final, point of it. And the deputy chancellor said, well, it's up to the board to verify the books. And I said, but they've been verified and verified by the time it gets to us. It is basically just procedural that we say, yes, this book that our group has done off of this list. So I would really appreciate that.
That shouldn't be an issue at all. So we start from the moment we know we're going to be adopting a textbook all the way through board approval. And while it is procedural, it is also financial.
Right.
Textbooks are a significant expense that the board has to approve.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Houchin.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Okay, next is District Advisory Committee, and I see Dr. Spiro here. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Mr. Hertz, Scott Hertz, cannot be here today, so I'm going to be sharing his report. We had two meetings for the fourth quarter. One was on March 30th, and very similar to the curriculum advisory, the March 30th meeting was to share the summer learning opportunities that we were providing students for this summer that actually began this week. And so we highlighted the programs we're doing for our ELL students, our ESC students, reading camps, iReady, enrichment. We also shared with the committee that we did send home, and I know you're aware, but I'd like to say this publicly, we did send home with every elementary student. We sent home books this summer, as well as workbooks, and there will be opportunities for students to Zoom in with teachers during the summer to do a read to and a read with these workbooks. We also sent home science labs to our rising fifth graders, so they'll have an opportunity this summer to also do science labs at home as part of our extension. And then middle school, Ms. Houchin put together a summer novel study on a book called Peak. And so I believe I've sent that information to you before in the board update, but I will send it to you again in case you want to join the students and be part of that novel book study for our middle school students. And so that was the March 30th meeting. Our last meeting fourth quarter was April 27th. And during that meeting, we highlighted the implementation of the new BEST standards, as well as the most up-to-date information we had on the state's progress monitoring. We had an opportunity for our community members to ask questions about the BEST standards. We shared the professional development that our teachers would be going through, not only in the month of June and July, but also as we return back to school. And as you know, Ms. Patrika is our board liaison for DAC, and so in the month of March, Ms. Patrika shared an update on the contract with Dr. Bernier, who was our new superintendent at that time. And then in April, Ms. Patrika shared how impressed she was with the committee's work this year and expressed that the committee has had a positive impact on the district's processes, which have greatly benefited our teachers and our students. And that is the report for DAC.
Thank you. Board members, any questions? Ms. Gittens?
I'm sorry. Okay, my question is about the Chromebooks, and what is the process this summer? Did the students have to check them in and check them out? How are they doing these programs that you mentioned?
So our Chromebooks are available to our students. Yes, they had to check them in to make sure they had the update that they needed for the Chromebook, and then they checked them right back out to our students. We absolutely want to make sure that our students had Chromebooks, that they had availability, especially as we do some of our enrichment. So if you hear of situations where maybe a student did not have access to Chromebook, I would be very much interested in that because they should have been deployed to all students that were interested in them.
To all individual students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Spiro.
Thank you.
Okay. And next on the list is EDAC. Okay. Dr. Blakely. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Chris Blakely here with the EDAC quarterly report. So, as you all are aware, the vision of the Equity, Diversity, and Advisory Committee is to ensure a community where individuals feel safe, cared for, and connected as one, all having access to equity, feeling included to cultivate diversity and inclusiveness. And we use that vision as a foundation to set the balance of the agenda items for the year that we reviewed. So in the fourth quarter, we took time to review the presentations we had throughout the academic year, which included presentations from HR and recruitment strategies, the Student Code of Conduct, Equal Opportunity Schools, as well as community and parent engagement to identify recommendations that were documented and recorded on the board's recommendation tracking form. In the fourth quarter, EDAC met to discuss in a facilitated conversation about the review of the academic year and provide these recommendations. During that last meeting, as well as I want to state today publicly, we want to express our gratitude to our board liaison, Ms. Betsy Vaughn, as well as our staff liaison, Jared Eady and Ms. Crystal Torres Nunez, for their support and commitment to our committee. We can be a very spirited committee with a lot of discussion and dialogue, so we appreciate their patience in supporting us as we work through that. But the recommendations are listed as followed that were identified in April. The EDAC committee recommended that the board support the CROWN Act, which is an acronym for Create a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair, in pursuit of ending hair bias and discrimination. Additionally, there was a recommendation that the board expand the use of restorative justices and practices to keep students in the classroom as relates to the student code of conduct. There was a recommendation that the board eliminate at-large seats and add 2 single-member district seats in support of term limits. Additionally, the committee recommended that the board develop and or continue to expand recruitment efforts to include Canada, the Caribbean, and Central America to attract minority teachers, administrators, and staff to better reflect the district's students' population. The committee also recommended that the board create an annual reporting process between small business enterprise and EDAC that would include periodic meetings to review supplier diversity. Lastly, the committee recommended that the board communicate with local small businesses and organizations that foster small businesses such as Goodwill, Collaboratory, and others to make them aware of the district's needs and availability to support the initiatives from the small business enterprise. And that concludes the fourth quarter report for the EDAC committee.
Thank you, Dr. Blakely. Any questions or comments? Ms. Vaughn?
It was my pleasure to work with all of you for the past 2 years, and it is a very lively committee, and you're people after my heart, because there's always something that is being brought up, and since we didn't meet again after those, I just wanted to mention on the first 2 things about the CROWN Act and the I forget what the restorative justice and all. I had a discussion with academic services, and we're covered with those. The report that was requested, the reports that was well received, and you know, I'm termed out, but you should be having those reports next year. And the other thing is, I'm very happy to report that we had a discussion at the dais about the single-member districts, and we established that it does take a while for this. So we came up, I don't remember off the top of my head, and we won't discuss it right now, but we did come up with a date that we needed to start putting that out there and having our discussion, and should it be something that the board wants to move forward with, that would give us plenty of time to do the things that we need to do with, you know, it'll take redistricting, and it'll take a lot of additional steps, but it is on in the parking lot for discussion, and we have a date. And so look for that, all of you who were on EDAC this past year or are interested in this, look for it coming soon, because it does take a long time to go through all the steps. So again, it was my pleasure to work with all of you this year.
It was our pleasure as well, so thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Ms. Gittens?
Do we have thank you for all that you guys did. Do we have a process, an official type process for taking the examples of the recommendations from, especially this last report that they give, and making sure that it's on our parking lot or on the workshops, or maybe we have a workshop where we discuss all of the findings that have come at the end of the year from these committees? Is there anything official that we have?
We have a process.
Yes. Dr. Bernier?
Board Member Gittens, there is a procedure by which recommendations move forward from these committees to the board. I am not as familiar with that policy as you would like me to be right at this very moment. It is one that I have reviewed. I know Kathy behind me probably has an even clearer answer. This has come up before. But there is a process to move those recommendations forward to you into a workshop for consideration. I know that we've asked, for instance, and one of the committees already reported on sort of the legacy idea regarding student enrollment. That one is moving forward to come to you as a board. But there is a process, and I'll let Kathy Dupuy-Bruno talk more about what actually happens once the committee's made a recommendation.
So, Ms. Gittens, there is a process that once the committee makes the recommendation, it goes to staff, they review it, and they come back to the board. There's also a process if the board wants specific action from the superintendent, can direct the superintendent to look at something in particular and then come back to the board. So there is a process document that does outline that.
And I guess what I'm saying too, is there a time, it sounds as though staff will look at the possibility of doing it and then it comes to us. Is there any time that we would see that whole list and say our thoughts about prioritizing that list, or is it staff and the superintendent that decide which of the ideas go forward?
Currently, the way that the process works is, and we're very thankful for Cindy McClung, she does keep a list of all the recommendations. She then provides that opportunity, and as we move towards a different cabinet structure, it'll be an opportunity for us as an executive group to discuss. But there is no reason when that document is put together with the entire list from each one of the committees that could not be shared with all of you in a board update, making sure that you see the recommendations.
Thank you.
Vaughn?
I just wanted to add to that. EDAC happens to be one of the committees that has, this past year, brought forward a lot of recommendations. And the way I've handled it is, you know, I've worked closely with Jared Eady and Crystal Nunez-Torres, and you know, we talked, you know, divided up. There were a couple things that I could bring directly, or for instance, the first two things that I just mentioned, all I needed to do was talk to student services in academic services, and you know, that's already covered, and all of those things. And then you know, I made the judgment that the idea of single-member districts, this is something that staff didn't need to debate. It's something that we as a board need to debate, and so I brought that directly. There was something earlier this year regarding one of our board members that was pushed forward. I brought that directly. So I think it's part of this when we talk about the process. Part of it is just working the board liaison, working with the staff liaison and the committee chair, and then because some of them don't have to go through that process. They're very easy to check out. The other thing, since we're talking about this, that I've recommended ever since before I was on school board, actually, and was for a short time, I took over from vice chair to chair of, I think it was CSI, and I was not on the board at that time. And I was a little bit lost, quite frankly, coming into it kind of mid-year. And the thing that I had suggested, and I don't know that it's been ever enacted, I think there should be, at the beginning of each year, a training for the new chairs. And I know we do have, the board attorney comes in, and we are well-versed on sunshine laws. But outside of that, a training on, you know, what's the purpose, and that reminders, even people, you know, there are going to be new people on this board, and it doesn't ever hurt, I know for me, to have reminders if I were to be here again, on what is the role of the school board chair, because I know in the past, some school board chairs have done what I've tried to do, is to sit back and answer questions when asked and give my reports, and others have taken a firmer hand with their committee, which is not the way I feel like I have not done that. And I really think that, you know, and this may be something, it just popped into my head as we've been talking about this, that we might want to discuss at a future workshop. I know Ms. McClung was just asking us yesterday, what do you want to add? Well, I think this would be something that we might want to add on the chairs and staff and board liaisons all meeting and having clear-cut picture of these are your roles, and, you know, something I would like to see added. So.
Did you want to say something? Dr. Bernier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Vaughn, those are excellent points. I think anybody going into committee work deserves that orientation to understand what the committee is, what the purpose of it is. Certainly the legal requirements of sunshine and other things are vital, but the other aspect of clearly understanding what the work is, what they're expected to accomplish, what they're expected to discuss, I think would be very vital. I can't say that it's not occurring already. What I will do is I will get with Cindy McClung. We will take a look at that and be prepared this coming fall when the committee's reorganized to be prepared to do that for you and the board.
Thank you. I think it would be very helpful.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Dr. Blakely.
Fisher?
Yes.
I just have one thing, just for clarification with regard to the Crown Act. I just want to make sure that it's clear. The Crown Act is not law in the state of Florida. It did not pass, and the Crown Act did not pass federally either. However, in addition to student services and what you were provided with Ms. Vaughn, in our upcoming policy, there will be a small reference to some of the requirements of the potential proposed Crown Act.
Right, and oh, I'm sorry, if I may, that's exactly what we talked about in when I talked to student services, and they said the kinds of things that were referenced in EDAC about the natural hair and those things. And we had just had the conversation at a workshop about different color hair as well. So, you know, I knew we were covered, so, but thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Okay, moving right along, since it is 1:35, we have, last but not least, Finance Advisory Committee, and Mr. Teblum.
Daryl Teblum, Chairman of the Financial Advisory Committee. In March, most of the meeting was spent with a discussion with Ms. Gittens about RSM and handling our audit. We asked a lot of questions, and she also talked about that there was going to be a board briefing by Davis Company on March 29th. At that point, we made sure that we had our meeting set for the summer, because last year we got shut down by February. No matter what I tried, I wasn't even able to call a meeting, so we had to wait all the way to September. April was very interesting. We discussed the cost of replacing an employee and reviewing the exit data, which brought up something that's come up many, many times. It brought up the benefits, which I'm going to get to in a minute. In May, we had a very lengthy discussion with Ms. Gittens about legislative priorities for student funding, the new legislation that was put forth by the Florida legislature, and Davis Demographic did give us a presentation. At the end of that presentation, we received some concerning news For many years, the Financial Advisory Committee's been tasked with saving the district money, whether it be by cost-saving measures, assisting with debt, with solutions for debt, streamlining processes. I've been on this committee for many, many years. There's an average of over 20 people every single year appointed by sometimes different school boards, but nonetheless, that's 6, 7 years, 20 each year. It's over 120 members, and every year it's come back that we have always advised this board that we need to send out for an RFP based off of benefits. I spoke last night with Ms. Leckler about this, and she said she can only find it up to 2019. So I reached out to the former chair, Mr. Cohen, and asked him if he would join me today here. The same thing has come forth every year. After my conversation with Ms. Leckler last night, I happened to jump on Facebook because somebody sent me a message asking me about what's going on with the financial advisory. There were 186 comments on Facebook in a private forum for employees talking about benefits and why they're leaving because of benefits. It's an issue. We highly advise the district to take up this issue as soon as possible. We were informed at the end of the meeting that an additional contract was signed by the district for another 2 years without sending out for an RFP. I've been on this board 2015, 2016, 6, 7 years. That's over 120 people that we've had this discussion with, and we've all come to the exact same conclusion that we need to find out how we can cut the costs for the employees, assist them with getting family members covered, especially the children of the employees, not even the spouses. If we even just helped cover the children. The last presentation we had, the head of the union, Mr. Daly, even came in to discuss this, and over again, year after year, committee after committee, this is brought up as a major problem. The employees are talking about it. Their families are talking about it. This is affecting the children, which are also our customer, our stakeholders. We need somebody to have the leadership to step up and take this one on. I'm at this point with them signing a new contract. My first meeting with the superintendent, the attorney that was in the room did not even have knowledge that another contract was signed. And that covers through 2024. I'm sorry, as an individual, I have no dog in this fight. I just find that absolutely unacceptable. I wish this board would step up and take action. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you. Okay, board member questions, and then Dr. Bernier will comment.
Okay, do you want to speak first?
I can't. I don't want to get in the way.
No.
Get in the way of you asking
Mine
a
is
question.
generic. Go ahead.
For the record, for everybody, that first meeting, I don't know how long I'd been superintendent. I think it was less than a week. Yes. So I want to make sure that everybody understands I was not aware of a 2-year renewal at that time, but have since that meeting dug in very deeply to our insurance and to our insurance benefits. You will see in the future a meeting coming forward with this board as a work session to talk about insurance benefits, specifically looking at the cost of our insurance, specifically looking at the level of employer contribution, as well as the inflationary costs that we're experiencing as we are all see it like our gas pump. Medical services are also inflating costs, and our program has been pared down over a number of years to try to reduce the amount of cost. We have a comparison now of how we compare to every other governmental entity within the Lee County area. We have some other factors that we need to consider, but I will tell you, your comments in that particular, when I met the committee heads, did not fall on deaf ears. I immediately went to work. I've been discussing members with board members, but let me be clear. The reason for the 2-year renewal is we had a contractual obligation to renew for 2 years, but we will be going out for an RFP in the spring of '23 because it will be time to renew that particular service, and we want to make sure, at the committee's suggestion and in my direction, we will be doing an RFP for insurance benefits this coming spring in order to be prepared to make a change or to continue with our current provider and make some additional changes to the structure of how we go about insuring our employees. I'm happy to take the conversation also offline with you, talk in a little more depth, but I think you will see the action that you want and the former chair wants to see. You'll see the board begin to take that under advisement, and then we also will need to be careful in the sunshine, because I'm very sure that this will be an item of interest. As you all know, we do item of interest bargaining with our unions. We are 100%, you can't be any more than 100%. We are 100% sure that this will be an interest item for our unions moving forward. So I'm looking forward to making good on some of the efforts that have been made prior to your leadership, but also making efforts on what the committee has provided us in terms of feedback regarding insurance benefits. And I just wanted you to understand that work's already underway.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tabler. Ms. Gittens.
Okay, and I wanted to let the superintendent explain that to you. I do know that in the committee, I think it's the next meeting, the superintendent is supposed to be coming to speak to the committee, one-on-one with all of you. And I really appreciate the work of this committee. I was very grateful to be able to be the liaison to this committee because of all that the thought and ideas and things that they come forward with. But I do want to echo that it is something that is being worked on. But thank you for all of your perseverance and hard work.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any more questions? Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate the work of the advisory committee chairs and members and the district liaisons. And now we'll move right on to our next presentation, which is an Innovation School update. And so on this team, we have Dr. Jeff Spiro, Chief of Academic Services, Dr. Helen Martin, Assistant Director, Professional Development, Dr. Bethany Quisenberry, Director, Teaching and Learning, Candace Alivedo, Director, Teaching and Learning, and our friends from FGCU, Dr. Thomas Roberts, Interim Dean, College of Education, Dr. Melissa Meehan, Interim Program Coordinator, Dr. Michelle Stork, Program Coordinator and Associate Professor, and Javier Salazar, Architect. So welcome, and we're looking eagerly forward to this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Spiro. I'm the Chief Academic Officer for the school district, and I am here with my partner from FGCU. I'm with here at Dr. Roberts, and he and I get the honor of doing a welcome. So I just want to take you a little bit through what this afternoon is going to look like. As you recall, we began this journey back in 2018. That is when the Memorandum of Understanding was signed, and that's when we began this phenomenal journey together. And this once, could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for all of us working here together, because this is the first public school and a university working together to create this partnership. And we're going to be the first in the nation if we're able to get this across the finish line successfully in the near future. And so we're excited about the work that we've been doing. This is the third time we've had the opportunity to present to you as a school board and give you an update on where we are. So today, this afternoon, what it looks like, we are going to share the milestones, and Dr. Bethany Quisenberry is going to share some of those milestones with you. Then we're going to give you an update on professional development and curriculum. And we have Dr. Helen Martin and Dr. Melissa Meehan from FGCU, who will be providing that update for you, as well as an update on communication and community engagement. And then Candace Alivedo and our guest Javier Salazar will talk to you a little bit about our facilities and construction, the work that we've been doing in that particular arena, and then I'll wrap it up at the end as far as next steps are concerned. Up on the screen is an update of our committee membership. As I said, this began in 2018, and so our committee membership has changed as it continues to grow. The newest members of the team, you'll see there, are highlighted in green. We've added Mary Grace Romo, and I believe Mary is in here. There's Mary. Hello, Mary. Mary from early childhood is here. She has joined the team, as well as Mr. Joel de Guzman, who's sitting in the back. Joel, thank you. He's from the planning department. He has joined our team. And then Ms. Barbara Moreland. Ms. Moreland is here as the TALC representative. Mr. Daly, our TALC president, was part of a meeting with us and has really tapped Barbara to be part of this conversation. And then you see at the bottom the two green names are our guests from RG Architects that have joined our committee, and Javier Salazar, as well as Mr. Ryan Richards, who you know well. They've joined the committee. And then I'll let Dr. Roberts just share a little bit about his team from FGCU, who's part of that committee. And then he has a few words that he wants to share as well. Dr. Roberts?
Thank you, Dr. Spiro. Thank you, board members. It's good to be here this afternoon. I really just want to start out by saying that since FGCU's very inception, we've always understood, realized, and valued what an essential and vital partnership we have with the school district of Lee County. And serving as interim dean over the past year and a half has only reinforced my feelings in that regard. I've seen many of you at different events in our community, and I know for a fact that nothing could be more important to us than educating the youth in our community and preparing teachers to be ready for what's in store for them when they enter the classroom. The way in which learning has evolved over the past 20 years is very significant. It's changed quite a bit. And I believe that the Innovation School is a great opportunity for us to prove that public education can and will adjust. We can be responsive to societal needs, and we can base it on innovative research-based practices. The Innovation School is an initiative that aims to do exactly that, being the best that we can possibly be, being bold enough to lead, and working together to transform individual lives, young lives in our community, so they in turn can transform their communities and our society as a whole. So it's been a pleasure to work with everybody at the district. Dr. Spiro, you'll hear from many of our FGCU colleagues who are highly vested in this initiative as well, and we're very proud of the progress that we've been able to make to date. So without further ado, we'll get on with the presentation. Bethany.
Maybe not. Is this one already on? Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, so some of these slides will be a little bit of a repeat from previous presentations, but we thought that it was very important that we go back to when our committee was first established, as Dr. Spiro mentioned, in 2018. We felt that it was important for us to create a vision and a mission for the committee to lead our work. So you see our why starts with our vision, which is to create innovative leaders and lifelong learners who positively impact an ever-changing society, which I believe Dr. Roberts just did an amazing job of speaking to that why. And I just want to repeat again also what Dr. Spiro mentioned, that this is a first of its kind. This is the very first school that will be a public school in partnership with a public university in the nation, which is very exciting. And then our mission, again, that our committee established in the beginning, which I just really want to highlight the piece of innovative leaders. And especially in the work as we have began the design, which Javier is going to speak to at the end, is very challenging. When you sit and you start to really look at what is innovative, what does that look like, and move as especially as educators that have been doing this many years, and you kind of get in your box, what does that really look like to be innovative, not just for today, but 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road as this building will be, continue to be current in our district. And so in improving the quality of life, not just for our students, but for our community, the state, the nation, and beyond. We also established guiding principles, which we ensured matched our district values. So aligning with our district core values of excellence, integrity, belief in students, high expectations, accountability, and professionalism, which really works towards an equitable access to quality education for all. And being able to replicate that, not just across our district, but again, across our state and across our nation, replicating those best practices for our students, teachers, administrators, and the way that you utilize the school for your community. So some of our committee milestones, again, the MOU was signed back on August 28th of 2018, and that was when our committee was established. And we began that joint pre-K to, in the beginning it was a pre-K to 12 innovation school design, and we have now, as you know, determined that it will be a pre-K to 8 school design. Moving into 2019, 2021, we gave a board update in August of 2019, and then again in March of 2021. And we also provided a presentation to our Curriculum Advisory Committee, the District Advisory Committee, as well as the staff at FGCU. That was in 2020. Then we began our action planning. So from 2020 to 2021, we really began the action planning behind what is the curriculum going to look like? What is professional development going to look like? And really getting into the weeds of those pieces that my colleagues are going to speak to more in depth in just a moment. Of course, that was the world of COVID, so we kind of took a little bit of a pause. So moving into 21-22, this past year, we really focused on a research project that the team is going to share out, and our professional development pilot beginning to move forward. In 22-23, we have now began the exciting work of the design with our partners at RG on the building. Some additional committee milestones. The places that you see that are underlined indicate the links out to board presentations for when these decisions were made. And so our site is the Treeline site, which was a consensus by the board on March 9th of 2021. And then we had our approval for the RFQ for architectural services with RG, which was on July 27th of 2021. In February, we had an FGCU Day, which I'm going to hold off because our FGCU friends are going to talk more about that, but it was very exciting. It was an awesome event. And then in February, we began our TALC inclusion, and so really starting that work of bringing in more members into our committee to be able to really start guiding that work. Then in May, we began visioning and programming with RG Architects, which we have been meeting, I think, every 2 weeks. Right? It's been every 2 weeks for the past couple of months to work through that work. And then just last week, we had the amazing summer series and professional development. There were over 1,000 teachers there that were able to design their own path for professional development. And so we were able to offer that Dr. Martin is going to talk further into, but where teachers were able to choose those pieces that we had already isolated out to be innovative for the school. So we were excited to see those teachers' excitement for these pieces as well. And then as we started moving forward into the work, we divided into subcommittees. So we met in our subcommittees each month, and then we also met as a full committee each month to be able to share out from the subcommittee. So we have a professional development and curriculum subcommittee, communication and community engagement, and then facilities and construction. And so we were able to divvy out that work to really, now that things are moving much quicker, there's lots more work to take care of. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Martin, who is going to share some of the professional development pieces.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am Dr. Helen Martin, and I'm excited to share with you the PD and curriculum subcommittee updates. Our subcommittee meets monthly to review data, read research, create action plans, and really reflect on our progress. So the work of our Professional Development and Curriculum Subcommittee is driven by the National Association for Professional Development Schools Standards for Partnerships. So these standards really create benchmarks and guideposts for the school and university collaboration in terms of professional development, in terms of research, as well as shared inquiry. The work of the standards really ensures that all students have access to high-quality educators through identifying and sharing replicable best practices. So the professional development and instruction focus with the Innovation School will promote inquiry-based learning. Today's learners are different than they were 2 years ago, 12 years ago, 20 years ago, and beyond. They want to be active participants in their learning. They want to set their own goals. They want to see where they are in relationship to those goals, and they want to see quick, tangible measures of success. The world of work is also dramatically different as it was even 2 years ago now. So as more and more jobs are automated, an education that promotes a one-size-fits-all approach will really leave students behind. So because of these shifts, today's students, tomorrow's leaders, really need critical and creative thinking skills, a mindset for collaboration with all stakeholders, and the ability to communicate their ideas in a myriad of ways. Inquiry-based learning encourages students to be active learners by identifying real-world problems and applying cross-curricular skills, really to identify solutions. So in order to promote inquiry-based learning, high-quality professional learning for teachers is needed. Teacher professional development is really at its best when it's driven by teacher voice and by teacher choice. So seeking to capture teacher voice and teacher choice, the Department of Professional Development sent out its first annual PD temperature survey to teachers in December of 2021. The goal of the survey was really to take a temperature of our teachers, to get a feel for what their professional development needs were and what their habits were and really what they wanted in terms of PD topics and how they wanted it to feel and look for them to best promote their learning. Over 1,100 teachers responded to our first annual survey, and here's a snapshot of really the insight and input that was provided by our teachers regarding their desired instructional areas for PD. What's clear from the survey results is that teachers want tools and strategies to accommodate the needs of all students in their classroom with meeting high standards and really applying those literacy skills across the content areas. In other words, universal design for learning that promotes a flexible, individualized approach for education so all students can meet high standards. The committee was excited to see that the PD and instructional focus of the Innovation School was really mirrored and reflected in the teacher survey results. So teachers also recognize the changing nature of students and the changing nature of the needs in the classroom and the world. And they requested more training and topics to really help them manage their classrooms in a way to promote critical and creative thinking, to promote collaboration amongst students, as well as to support multiple formats of communication. So again, the committee was really excited to see alignment between our PD and instructional focus and what the teachers said they wanted. So the PD and Curriculum Subcommittee, we collaboratively analyzed this data together, and from that collaboration, we identified a list of possible professional development topics that we could pilot with our teachers in the school district. So from there, we found the summer series, which was an a la carte, choose your own adventure PD opportunity for our teachers, and it really provided the perfect format to pilot some of these PD opportunities. So our first offering was last week, was attended by over 1,000 teachers, and they engaged in over 3 days of learning, and they had over 260 sessions to choose from. And of those sessions, several key ones were designed and facilitated by our partners at FGCU.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am Dr. Melissa Rodriguez Meehan. I'm an assistant professor of early childhood and elementary teacher education at FGCU. I'm going to just go over a little bit about the workshops that were offered by the FGCU faculty to support classroom management, which was one of the components mentioned by the teachers that they wanted some more professional development in. Dr. Nate Turcott provided opportunities for teachers to reflect on and discuss their own classroom experiences and how to navigate some challenging situations that were presented to them in a game-based format. Dr. Michelle Stork provided an introduction to Universal Design for Learning, where teachers learned how UDL is a tool to support all learners, as emphasized by Dr. Martin. Additionally, attendees in the second session provided by Dr. Michelle Stork received practical and replicable strategies to apply UDL in their own classrooms. Play-based learning and student agency were the focus of the other two FGCU sessions offered. There we discussed how to incorporate more play and choice in classrooms to enhance children's development and foster student motivation and engagement. All the sessions were well received. We just received our feedback today. Teachers provided feedback, which included wanting to have these sessions offered at school-based professional development and wanting additional opportunities to collaborate with FGCU faculty in terms of research.
Great.
So currently, speaking of research, we'd like to update you on the committee's current research project, which shares our collective experiences of coming together to build this school. This paper, as you can see, there's a short little synopsis up there on the slide, was submitted to the National Association for Professional Development Schools, their special issue, which was centered on the university-school partnership, which we are exemplifying here. Through this process, we hope that other school districts will benefit from reviewing our process, understanding our experiences, our perceptions, and hopefully support them in establishing similar partnerships and similar schools. So we are excited to talk a little bit about FGCU Day. This was one of our main community engagement events this year, and FGCU Day was a celebration that took place on Saturday, February 12th from 9 to 3 p.m. And here we were celebrating FGCU's 25 years of impact. So naturally, the Innovation School had a place at that event. The College of Education and school district employees had a table for the Innovation School. There were a variety of stakeholders who approached the table, including students, FGCU students, future teachers, current teachers, community members, and parents. And they had an opportunity to engage with committee members, ask questions, just kind of see what the curiosity was about the Innovation School. Additionally, we had some tables set up in terms of technology and inquiry-based activities for children in the community who were able to experience that as well.
So with that, as Javier is coming up to join us now, we're going to be moving into speaking a little bit about our facilities and construction and where we are right now. We've had the opportunity twice with our partners from FGCU, School District of Lee County, and now RG Architects to really start digging into the work and based upon the research of what does the building look like and how will it foster all of these pieces that we are talking about. So Javier is going to lead us through a little bit of what that initial workshop looked like that we had on May 12th, where you heard Dr. Quisenberry say it really stretched all of us. So as educators, it really took us into looking at this through a very different lens. So we're happy to share that with you today. Javier?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Javier Salazar, principal with RG Architects. I'm not used to speaking on a mic. So good afternoon. I'm extremely excited to be here to be talking about this project because as you had heard, and seen on the initial slide and recently with some of our colleagues here, this is all learners. This is for the student, this is for the teachers, this is for the community. Creating an environment that would foster learning for the benefit of the students' learning experience, the professional development of the teachers, and for the community to understand how to best support education. So we start with why should we care about school design? Well, this is all research-driven, and the reason why we are working in the design stages of it with research is because that's what the committee has been doing all along, right? We don't want to be innovative for the sake of being innovative. We want to be innovative because it has a meaningful impact. So if you can see here, I'll ask you to focus on the 16%, which is physical learning environment. This is what impacts the learning experience of a student. That 16% is meaningful, but if you look at the upper two, individual student variability, 50%, this means the individual characteristics of the students that are influenced by space. Because, there could be a student that behaves or performs better in a certain type of space. So having flexibility to adequately address that. Then teacher effectiveness. A teacher can always be more effective if they have more tools at their disposal. Everybody teach a little bit different, so being able to be adaptable for that. So it is important that we capture the essence of the research. Staying in the line of research, what does research say about spaces? So this is a very simple research study that was done where, as you can see here, there are 5 different design strategies for a classroom suite. So the very first one, A, being kind of your traditional classroom. B is kind of your traditional classroom, but it has a little, in the green area, it has a breakaway space. Then you have C, where it has a portion of traditional classrooms. Some of those classrooms are flexible and can open within them in the pink. And then in the green, again, your breakout space. Then there's D, where it's less traditional space and mostly flexible, that can be not only open plan, but also closed off for specific strategies, and then a completely open E. So if we look at the research, and I was going to ask you to think about which one in your head real quick would be the most effective. And so they asked teachers, and they evaluated both the performance of the teachers and the students based on any of these concepts. So the results were that the most effective was not all the way open. It was the open plan that had the ability to be closed into smaller classroom, a medium-sized classroom, a large classroom, or any combination thereof. So this is, you can see how it measured both the teacher experience as well as the student. Inclusive in our innovative design are all the elements that make for an enhanced learning experience, keeping the learner as everybody. Having flexibility, having flexibility of where the learning experience happens. Individualization, I had to practice this word like 20 times on the way here. Personalized activities, so every learner is different. And so having the ability to either break away into smaller one-on-one, smaller group, medium-sized group, having that ability to adapt to the students' ownership of their learning experience. Naturalness and nature is extremely important, and research shows over and over that being connected to nature, being connected to materials that connect you back to nature, greatly foster the education experience. Stimulation, we want to have the right type of stimulation within these spaces, right? Make sure that when we have environments that require, or we have exercises where it requires the students to be active, that we have the environment that incentivize that, or where it needs to be quiet, it does that. When it has to be in a smaller venue, it does that. So we have to make sure that the spaces stimulate the student. So this is the kind of the end of the research, which is really interesting in my opinion. So on the left, you're going to see the pre-occupancy. So this is they evaluated the traditional space and see how it performed. And they looked at testing, collaboration, and many, many metrics that are generally looked at. So they went back after the school was open and then see how the new space was behaving and what's being, how did it improve the performance of the students. The first thing you'll notice is that on the right, testing is at the very top, and on the left, testing is at the very top, on the right, testing is at the bottom. Testing is at the bottom, but in the same magnitude, meaning that the testing results remain the same. So they perform at the same level. But now if you look at the top of the right side, collaboration was greatly increased. Creativity was greatly increased. All these other aspects that are part of a healthy education experience were increased. So the point being is that research does show that space does matter.
So now what do we do with all of those pieces? So you've heard about the research, our ongoing projects, and now we're working with RG Architects. And here we really had the ability on May 12th to sit and go learning the learner. What does that mean, pushing us outside of our comfort zones? And that picture there kind of illustrates some of the work. We were given stacks of cards that tied with each of these areas here. They tied with that learning, teaching, spaces, furniture, technology, and safety. And as we broke out into groups, we had to come together and think about what was the learning, and pick one card that we wanted to see. And then based upon that, what's the teaching you expect to see if that's the learning that should be happening with the students? And moving from there, if that's the teaching you expect, what does the space need to be for that teacher to be successful, for again bringing it back to the learner and that outcome? And moving forward of then what's the furniture that goes in that space that supports that teaching, again for student outcome? Moving all the way through the technology needed, and then of course safety of our students. So really having the ability to map all of those pieces out. And we did that as groups, and then we talked about it. And just yesterday when we came back again, we were able to say where were all of our commonalities. And as you've heard, this partnership, so you have FGCU and School District of Lee County coming together to be something first in the nation. It was amazing to see all those commonalities because of the research and rooted in best practices that our partners at RG were very clear, and we have a vision of what your team is really looking for. As Dr. Quisenberry started, though, we're looking to create something that has to withstand much longer than any of us here sitting on this committee. We're looking at a project where the learners, it's going to be very different. We're creating something for students whose jobs are not even created yet. So another activity that we went through is, what does that mean, the day in the life, where we had to think about and be that student who's sitting inside that building, not in 2 years or 3 years after it's open, but in 10 years. And what does that student schedule look like? Because we don't expect it to look like anything we have right now. Dr. Martin spoke about that professional learning and those pieces, and students wanting to have more of that ownership. So what does that mean? But what does it also mean for the intern, for the teacher, the pre-service teacher going through that building? How do they engage with the students and the spaces? And then what does it mean for the teacher inside of that classroom? And this is really breaking it down where we are very focused on the here and now in our day-to-day and providing our students with what they need. But as we look at doing something very differently, we have to shift our thinking and look out those 10, 15, 20 years as that building's still there. So this is just that team on the 12th that was able to come together. You've heard how our team has grown, but this was a snapshot of those individuals who spent 4 hours in the afternoon, a very late afternoon, trying to think differently. And we appreciate our partners at RG Architect who have really helped us with that. One of the other updates we'd like to bring you today, based upon the last time we had met and presented to the board, though, is while we have our tree line site that was under consensus, originally what you had heard from the committee was that this would be an open, similar to a magnet from all. But as we've talked about our need and our population and our student growth, one of these pieces is this will be a dedicated East Zone school. So what you see here is just a draft of a 5-mile radius of where this could be pulling from to really have that diverse population, because one of the things we talk about is how much this school, we want it replicable for all of the districts. So the population needs to mirror what our district looks like, especially as we want it to be replicable, not just in Lee County, but setting, as Dr. Quisenberry had said, really for across the state and the nation. One of our other milestones, I'm going to turn back over to Javier really quickly, is about our wetlands that were just done. Yeah.
All right, so as part of our services and as any project, you got to start with the due diligence, right? Understanding the site that you have, the program. For the program, that's why we had the meetings with the team to understand programmatically how those translate into square footage, and then do our exercise of understanding what can fit on the site given, all the characteristics of the particular site. As of right now, our team has completed the environmental assessment, writing reports for that. We have the program information. We're massing the site to understand what we can fit in it and what we can work with, and we'll be issuing that report in order to move forward into the next stages of the project. As far as the schedule goes, as it was put together by the school district, right now is tentatively fall 25 for the opening of this particular school. And as explained earlier, we are at the very earliest stages of kind of due diligence exercise.
Thank you. And then yesterday we had a meeting at FGCU with our full committee and with RG Architects, and I will tell you, yesterday, for me professionally, of everything we've done since 2018 was the most challenging day yesterday, because we really had everything that you heard today, we now had to put in the action. You heard Dr. Martin and Dr. Meehan talk about how this is going to be a school that's driven by inquiry-based learning, and that means critical and creative thinking. That means active participants. You heard Javier share with you the research about what it says for student learning in relation to the physical space in the building. You also saw Javier share with you how the research shows they need to have flexible opportunities inside of a building to support inquiry-based learning. So RG Architects yesterday broke us up into 3 different groups, and they gave us basically shapes that represented classrooms, or they represented flexible spacing in a school. And our task was to work together in teams to create one of our learning suites. If we say we're going to have this school based around inquiry-based learning, we know it's going to be an active building. If we are going to look at the research of what it says about spaces, then what does that really mean? And what does that space look like? And we had to make some recommendations. And again, this is not final recommendations. This is committee work. So anything I'm sharing with you is just committee work. There are no official recommendations. We had to make some decisions, such as, would we recommend that teachers have a dedicated classroom? Or, since it's inquiry-based learning, do they begin in another space? Maybe it's a maker space, or maybe they're in a digital creation space, or maybe there's a suite where grade levels get to come together that's in an open area that allows students to learn in different modalities. Or is it a traditional classroom where I'm providing direct instruction, and then there's flexible spacing in that classroom that allows students to then dive deeper into that work. And those were the beginnings of those types of conversations. And the word they used yesterday with RG and with our FGCU families, they kept talking about the word bold. If you really want to be bold and innovative, and we're looking 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, what could this really look like? And so that was the work that we began yesterday, based around everything leading up to it. And I don't know about my FGCU partners, but I found that one to be very challenging and taxing, and they're all nodding their head yes. So we're looking forward to our next meeting that will be coming up shortly. So at this time, we are going to end here and leave it with superintendent comments and board discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Spiro. To the board members, just briefly, thank you very much for the opportunity to provide you this presentation today. It was relevant for me in going through with the team and learning more about the innovation project. It's something that I heard about from a distance and then got up close and personal really, really fast. And I really want to thank the team for their work and the depth of this presentation. I know you will have your own discussion. I look forward to hearing what you have to add to this presentation so that we might get further direction as to what to accomplish moving forward.
So then, board members, Ms. Vaughn, then Ms. Morgan.
Okay, so first, the kudos. Glad to see that the teachers had a menu of choices. Frankly, this is something teachers have always wanted. I know from first-person experience. And also, in a previous district, we did a lot of collaboration with our local university, and actually even some vertical planning and all of that. So I think that's wonderful opportunities to be working closely with FGCU. I love the idea of the published paper. That's going to be something that other districts will rely on. And I just want to mention that just as an individual, I had no plan. I just, as someone who took graduate courses at FGCU and has a daughter who earned both her bachelor's and master's at FGCU, I kind of feel a connection with it, and just wandered around and had some great discussions that day. So that was fun. Now, let's get down to the other part. Well, one thing I'm just going to mention in passing, because I have something more important. You all are pretty young. I have actually worked in a middle school that was built in the 70s and had the flexible spaces. It was god-awful. Now, from the early 80s, when I was teaching at that middle school, I think we've had a few advances in technology. And at some point, when you have how many of you have taught in flexible classrooms?
There we go.
At some point, when you have these, I would love to be invited, because I know I can sound negative sometimes, but that's just my way of brainstorming. And I know a lot of things that may or may not come up as adults. You form your little practice groups. And I know that we have some amazing innovations now that will be a bit better than the 1-2-wall divider that I had between my class and I still remember the class next door. Not fun. Anyway, part of what was missed in this, and I see a big hole in this presentation now I came on the board in November 2018, and the MOU had already been signed. And at that time, as this is early my board experience, of course, the Innovation School was going to be built in Estero, and it was going to be part of a complex of like an education village and at the time, I remember a discussion about the school being built in an opportunity zone. So the whole concept, and this is what I'd like you to explain, the whole concept of going from, well, there's another whole story with what happened with that land and all of that, which we won't get into. But the concept of the opportunity zone, where it began, to now basically a microcosm of our district in terms of socioeconomic, and I'm guessing you're going to be looking to get, I don't know what you're going to do, if you're going to be looking to bring in students who are level 1 and 2 students, as well as upper level students. You might want to talk on that. But this is my question, how did we go, there's a big gap for me in the presentations. How did we go from the original concept of the opportunity zone to now it's a microcosm of the district to reflect all the different grade levels?
Board Member Vaughn, that's a great question. And unfortunately, with the lack of experience I have related to this project, I really can't answer it. I want to be cognizant, though, of individuals who are sitting at the panel currently. I'm not sure that they necessarily have the answer to that question specifically either. It was not something I believe that they were prepared to present today, but I'm looking, normally I get a nod, I get a raised finger from Jeff if he has that information.
I do not. I was not here in 2018 when the inception of this school began, so I cannot give you the genesis of the location.
We have to go back and do some research on your behalf.
Okay, because, maybe I missed something, but I know for a fact that was the original conversation, the opportunity zone, and part of the discussion centered around, was Estero the right location for this because of the demographics in the Estero area. And there were discussions in between, and now James Stevens is not obviously going to be used. Different plans emerged, and then it seemed to me that all of a sudden, here was the tree line site. And I know there's some also, so there's a lot that maybe I just need to talk offline, but I still have lots of questions because I know some of the, there were some issues with the tree line site in terms of the building and how big it could, how much capacity we could build in that school. And I've heard stories, not stories, but reports to me when I've asked individually, well, we had to go up like 3 stories. Are there answers on any of that? Because currently it's what, 1,500 capacity?
Candace.
So where we've kind of landed with, where we've always been, I guess I should say, at the committee, we're kind of from the beginning around that, where the most comfortable is that 1,200. So really 1,200 when you're looking at a K-8 and those numbers there. However, adding on the pre-K. So there were times and conversations, lots of numbers have been, but the committee consistently, that recommendation to be able to do that work based upon research and the need as well has been 1,200, and that's been in all of the documents from the time where we really started our proposal together of what did it look like is 1,200 where we have been solid.
And then additionally, and then part of the work from the Estero, so after the Estero site was no longer an option, then working with the planning department, and then they brought forward the tree line site that was presented to the committee made an official recommendation, and the recommendation was brought forward here for the board. As far as the ability to build a school on that site, that has not been the work of this particular committee. We were provided opportunities for locations, and then that's what our committee had a conversation around.
But how can you be planning the ideal interior of this school without knowing exactly what that piece of land will handle? And I have heard, you know, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to understand, because I feel like for me as a board member, and maybe some of you have had more specific conversations than I've had, this is a big, it's like, I love all this other stuff and the planning and all of this, but a key factor is what this land will handle for a facility. And I mean, in looking at this, we've even had this discussion here at the board table, as a matter of fact, when we were talking about a while back having a principal as a planner, the whole idea that, you know, people that are familiar with what they want and what's important in a school and what is disastrous, what's great, you have to know both of those, they mesh. So again, I'm not trying to be difficult. I will do this online with some of you, but this really is an important question in my mind.
So if I may, as a part of the design team, so in this particular process, it's no different than when you are creating something that hasn't been created yet, in the sense that we need to first understand what does an innovation school means programmatically, you know, just to get a rough order of magnitude in terms of how big of a building footprint would be required to support 1,200 students plus pre-K. So right now we are doing both things concurrently. So our team is meeting with the committee to understand what are those programmatic and functional needs so that we can kind of roughly capture that into some kind of model that gives us an understanding for area. And by the same token, as I explained earlier, our team have done the environmental assessment on the property, and we're going to produce a report that is going to provide in this piece of line in this piece of land for this program, yes, you can build it with this much. It would have to be this many stories. It would have to have this much stacking for cars on the site itself. These are the mitigation requirements for wetlands, whatever it may be. That is a report that we'll be issuing. But that is part of any project starting on. That's a very early due diligence package that we would issue. And once you receive that and it's reviewed, that's how you move forward to the next stage, because that's the document that is going to determine whether you can fit it or not. Now, if you were looking at a traditional, and I don't like saying the word prototype, but if you had a building that you knew exactly how big it was and what had in it, that's a lot easier because you can just plot it and kind of understand it. But in this case, being that is a little bit programmatically different, all those things need to be put in the mixer and produce a report, and that's what we are going to be producing before we move forward.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I have to go on the record saying that I feel like that's the cart before the horse, and that if we have selected, and we did decide on that site by consensus in 2021, I mean, I felt like planning and you know, the people that vetted the site for the purposes of this school, we wouldn't, and knowing that it wasn't going to be, and that's been round and round too, would it be one of our, what's the word I want, the standard school?
Prototype?
Prototype, thank you. Would it be, and it sounds like maybe it's not going to be a prototype, or maybe the outside, the exterior is prototype and the inside's not, but there are a lot of things that, as a board member, that worry me, concern me, that we're not totally sure if we can do that 1,200 on that site and have the vision of this new plan. So definitely, if we can't get answers today, because I understand what you're saying about a different group, I would like to talk to some people, architects and who planning online to understand this.
And the only thing I wanted to mention, Ms. Vaughn, we have had planning part of this committee. Kathy Ebal has been part of this committee, and Joel de Guzman from planning as well. So
Kathy's no longer here.
no, and Joel has been part of it. Yes, and
Okay.
he's a new member of the committee that replaced Kathy as she stepped off. So planning has been at the table as the conversations have been going on for a number of years as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bond. Ms. Morgan?
Yeah, so I love how you talk to us about your process, because we all are going to have to stretch when it comes to this innovation school. I love that you talk about how difficult some of these decisions are. That tells me that you really are stretching, and we need to understand how it is that you're coming to the places that you're landing. I love that it's research-based academically and in terms of the physical plant. I do have one question. I've been talking for years about project-based learning. How is it different from inquiry-based learning?
Candace?
Sure thing. So it is a subset of inquiry-based. So project-based, you've got inquiry, and then there's different levels of it. So project-based fits right in the family of inquiry-based.
Okay, well, you all had me at inquiry-based. I was all set. Just a thought. This was a fantastic presentation, and I think it needs to be on our website and FGCU's website, because if this article is published and people want to know more about what it is we're doing, I think the actual, process would be of interest. I also think that people are hearing about the Innovation School and they have no clue what we're talking about. And so, I would just like to see us start to build community investment, knowledge about an engagement investment in this school. And along the same line, I'm wondering about whether we should be thinking about a strategy to engage our legislators, or at least the aides, at this point in the process, because we won't be going to the legislature soon but I think it's important to introduce them to what we're trying to do and the significance of it in some way. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gittens, then Ms. Jordan.
Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. I have a couple of questions. One, when we talk about the universal, what is it, universal, don't tell me, design learning, okay? And if that is, if we're bringing teachers into this environment to teach them how to do the mental academic piece of this, are we looking at how that will be infused back out to the other schools? Besides, yes, we're teaching the teachers these principles and the way to do it. And the other question is the resources. So I can learn how to, if I am one of the teachers of the Innovation School, how to do this wonderful, activity-based. But if I go back to a school that has portables, sorry, had to say it, how do I have the resources to do the same thing? I'm not going to, it's not going to look like these pictures. So how are we looking farther down the road as to, this is the capsulation of it, but how do we infuse it out into the rest? That is, to me, that's the whole process, is to teach teachers how to teach the students of this century. So that's one question. And do you want to answer that one, or you want me to? Yeah.
I'm going to take my first shot and then turn it over to the committee if they have additional responses. First and foremost, I think it's really important for the public to know that this is not just great professional development training for the teachers who will be selected by a principal to work here. This will be a professional development center where all of our teachers can come to learn. Some of the activities, while they may appear to be furniture dependent, are adaptable to other classrooms and other classroom structures. And I agree with you completely. What the teachers and what Florida Gulf Coast University is bringing to the table, and our own professional development people are bringing to the table, is an opportunity to really revolutionize instruction, really talking about what it means for everyone, and potentially with Scott and other members of the construction team, really look at the design work here to see if it's applicable in some of our prototype models moving forward. This is really a chance for us to look at what a school of the future would look like. And that's why the planning is so far ahead of the construction process. We have to get an idea of what this means before we can ever determine how long, tall, short, wide it will be. Right? That physical plant can be adjusted to fit a piece of property. That number could be adjusted downward, but we still want to keep in mind, for the public, we want to keep in mind the cost per student station. We need to make sure we're compliant with the law. We need to be sure we're compliant environmentally. But to your question about instruction, the short answer to your question is yes. This is a way for us to change the way all of our teachers approach instruction, and I'll turn it over to the committee if they have anything to add.
Dr. Bernier, that was an excellent description of really what the school looked like. I think what our team needs to think about is housing that. So how do we provide, where do we house the resources for teachers after they leave? I'm a teacher, I'm interested in learning about UDI, for example. Where can I go? So that'll be part of our work, is also then how do we house that information publicly so that all of our teachers have access to that, not just coming in for demonstration or professional development, but truly a house for resources for our staff. And that's a great suggestion, and we'll add that to our work.
Can I add one more piece that I think the other piece of it is, and we've all seen this with professional development and professional development instruction. One of the things that Jeff and I have been talking about, we'll engage with our principals in Orlando and we'll engage with them more moving forward, is, and you've heard me use the phrase, and it's probably been overused now, but you get what you inspect, not just what you expect. One of the things that I've been talking to Jeff about is a classroom and school walkthrough design for accountability. Not for accountability as a gotcha, but as an accountability to have real solid conversations about what's occurring in a school building as we walk classrooms. If we've invested in this type of learning for our teachers, we have to have a process by which when we walk our classrooms that we're following up and looking for that instruction and those professional development opportunities actually being implemented. We've all sent, it's a funny joke, we've all sent people off to cooperative learning. They've been trained to the hilt, but we go into the classroom, they're still sitting in rows. We have to change the way we teach our young people, but we have to be able to walk into a school building and have those courageous conversations as well.
Thank you. And my next question is on slide 26, if you can bring that up. I just found it very, very interesting, the location of mentally challenging work and how that shifted from the teacher perception on the left to the teacher perception on the right. So academic people, can you explain that to me?
I will take the first shot at it because this graph really, I really loved this graph.
Yes.
Because it really shifts the focus of a school building. But keep in mind, testing on the left-hand side is the same percentage as testing on the right-hand side. So the importance of testing on the scale, the perception did not change. Just other things became more important. So I will let somebody else who's not coached me and helped me with the graph. If I look at mentoring, mentoring actually increased on the right-hand side. It's closer to 4, when on the other side it was closer to approaching number 3. So while it has dropped in category from collaboration at the top to mentoring as now the third from the bottom, it has actually increased in its score and perception.
The score of itself. So, and if I may, before they say anything too, if we really take a close look at that list, there is not one item on there that says being able to add 2 + 2. Everything on that list is a social, emotional piece. And I just think that's fabulous to notice. And when we talk about social emotional learning, that's it. Everything that we do, social emotionally, hands-on work, creativity, community, real world, collaboration, all has to do with being a human being, learning how to live in this world with other human beings. So I really appreciate that one. Did you guys want to say anything on that, or shall I go to my next one?
You could go to your next one, Ms. Gittens.
I want to just touch on it real quickly, Jeff, if I may.
Sure.
But everything here is about learning and achievement also.
Right.
These are the type of environments where, when constructed correctly, staffed correctly, and professionally developed in professional learning community models, this is where children will not only thrive, as you said, as the social emotional, but they will also thrive academically. We should see the academic needle move here, because when you engage children with an anticipatory set, when you engage them right out of the gate in an environment that sparks their learning, then you will see the results on the other side. So I want to make sure we're clear on that. We still have really great expectations for all of our schools in terms of their academic outcomes.
Oh, definitely. And I wasn't trying to separate them. I'm basically saying that it's the foundation. It's like Maslow all over again. That, you have to deal with the individual, the human being, before you can teach them anything. Okay, my next one is on slide, hold on, excuse me. It is on slide 34. And I will preface this by saying this is not a gotcha or anything negative, but as I look at this slide and I listen to what the purpose of this project is, and I look at the left side that says the demographics of the students who are looking at to be involved, and I go back to the slide previously, slide 33. I'm just saying. When we're talking about all of the questions and all of that, when and how are we going to involve all stakeholders that would have to do, when you go back to 34, look at who's on that list. We can check off some of those boxes, but we can't check them all off. And I just think that it's necessary to look at who is planning. And I was talking to someone last night about the fact that in education, well, just in education, especially in our demographic, cultural competence plays a big role. And educators know that how we educate a child from this demographic is going to be different than how we educate a child from a different demographic. It's just fact. So if that is that important, we need that representation, that experience, and that knowledge from those demographics to be involved in the planning of this process. And I hope I said that tactfully enough that everybody got my point there.
I do want to go ahead and make a comment on that. Duly, it's well noted on what you just shared. And I'll also tell you, this is not everyone who is going to be the committee moving forward. This was the group that was doing the beginning part. They're now, as we begin to accelerate these decisions, once we understand the framework, there are different groups of stakeholders that are brought in, everything from the student services component, ESE, ELLL, there are a variety, everything that makes up the whole child. There are experts from our FGCU team that come in. There are experts from the district that come in as well. And I know part of our plan also is then the deepening of our community engagement. I was looking at Dr. Malloy, but deepening of our community engagement as well as we accelerate this process. So yes, your point is well taken, but I also want to let you know that this is not everybody that is going to be engaged in this work moving forward.
No, and I get that, but what I'm trying to plant the seed in this district, that when we're starting at that ground level, at what point do you infuse? Not after we've got the basics, then we'll bring you in to help us figure out where we go from there. At the ground level. That's all I'm saying.
Board Member Gittens, message received.
Okay.
Thank you very much for pointing that out. When we vetted this and we vetted it deeply in cabinet, you've given us a whole nother level of when you take, and it's something that I'm take responsibility of looking at that slide and not catching it. When you look at the student population that we're potentially could occupy this school, and you look at least at the initial planning team, I see exactly the point you're trying to make, and those people need to be involved right from the beginning.
And honestly, just for the record, I believe that's why I'm here. So, the last thing is on slide 34, on the right-hand side, how you have the circumference of who will attend that school. I really, from comments that I've heard in the community and what people have said, I'm just concerned as to some people thinking this is our school, and you know exactly what I mean, because of where it's located. I've heard it over and over again. How do we deal with, and this is kind of rhetorical, you don't have to answer it now, but the school choice piece? Because if you have 28.9% white students at the school, and you can select within a half a mile of the school, the 28.9, how are you going to get more of those students from that broader area? So school choice is going to be a really, really proximity and all that is going to have to really be looked at, because I don't want to have to be the one to tell someone who just paid $500,000 for a house that their child cannot go to the school that they have heard of before they came here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gittens. Ms. Jordan?
Okay, I'm not going to repeat what Ms. Gittens said, but I was thinking the same thing, Ms. Gittens, because when we looked at this, and when I look at East Zone, this is definitely not the East Zone, because I see the villas there, I see areas that are there, that because I know my areas, so that really is South Zone. The villas does not incorporate into the East Zone. And then you have all the way to Colonial. So a lot of that part is not. So are we going to rechange the zones? But I did like the presentation, though. The presentation was great. Thank you. But I'm just curious about the zoning here, because I've had some issues with zoning. And but I'm seeing that here, that this is not all the East Zone.
Madam Chair, this line is an arbitrary circle. It was a way for the team, and we actually tried to find a way to remove the circle from our presentation and to include some additional demographic data. But ultimately, we did not have another version of this particular draft document. So I think it's very clear to the public. We need to be very clear to them. This is just central area. The population percentages that you see are reflected in that circle. We know with our proximity plan currently and the work that's about to be undertaken by another committee to have a recommendation ready for you by January, we don't zone schools like this. Right. This is just a slide for us to look at the demographic data surrounding this particular site. But the school is physically located in the East Zone.
Correct. And that's when they said it was an East Zone school, but when I'm looking at this, and I know that this has changed because the first one, Hanson, actually was in that circle. So that has changed all the way to 41. And so this has changed. It has, I don't know if it's moved more to the east or how that looks, but I know this has changed from the last time. But I just agree with what Ms. Gittens had said, and thank you for the explanation.
So, Ms. Patrica, do you have some comments?
No, I'm going to go back and watch this entire part of the meeting, and then if I have questions, may I get with you, Dr. Bernier? Thank you. I just don't feel comfortable jumping in without having been part of the entire thing.
Thank you very much. I don't know that Mrs. Giovanelli has joined us on the phone yet. Mrs. Giovanelli, are you with us? I'm assuming not, so I'm not going to be redundant and repeat anything, but as someone who taught her first class in 1960, this presentation excited me. Yeah. And I do want to say this, that I was thinking along the way, the flexible spaces. So we used to use outdoor classrooms, and we used to go in the hallway for more physical activities. And we have teachers now who are innovative. And I loved that we have teacher input, because that was one of the things I starred. The professional development is critical, and I was glad that Dr. B clarified that that will be for all teachers, not only for those who will be teaching in the Innovation School. I really want to appreciate the work you've done. I do agree with both Ms. Gittens and Ms. Jordan about, we are a minority-majority district, and we have a lot of diversity, and we do need for the people who are working with our kids to reflect the populations of our kids. So, I love the word partners. I love the partnership with FGCU. Collaboration and communication are two of my favorite words. And with the slide 26, with that changing of the social emotional things, if we don't do that, if we don't make kids comfortable, if we don't feed them, if they're not safe, they're not going to learn. So, and I know that from, as Mrs. Vaughn said, firsthand experience. So this excites me. I know that there's a lot of tweaking and a lot more work to be done. And I think that putting it on the websites is a great idea, because I think we can garner some more input from stakeholders around who could benefit from it and who will be interested and may even want to support it. So I don't want to be too wordy, and I don't want to repeat anything that my colleagues said, but I know this is a work in progress. And I know that there are so many concepts that are being explored. So thank you very much, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. The only thing I want to end on is you are part of this partnership. So this third presentation to you is to get that continual feedback so our committee can hear this work and add that to the body of work that we're doing as well. So we do take that feedback as another extension of our team. So thank you for your candor this afternoon.
Thank you. Ms. Dupree-Bruno, do you have anything?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Gittens?
Just one other thing. In future, like the event that you had at FGCU and all of that, I know it's hard to keep us all informed, but maybe some of those things could be put on our calendars, and then we decide if we can or we cannot attend, but at least it would be on our calendars and we would be aware that those events are going to happen. Thank you.
We'll be happy to do that.
I didn't see it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. This was great.
And Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can I break protocol for just 1 second? Because if I don't, I'm going to burst. I would like for us to please give a hearty welcome back for Dr. Desamore. Thank you.
I couldn't see well enough to be sure that that was her. I was going to text her and say, are you here? Okay, thank you. All right, moving right along, I see Mr. Rickenbacker is right in his place, and capital project quarterly update. Welcome, Mr. Rickenbacker. Thank you, FGCU people, for coming over.
Thank you, guys.
Good afternoon, Board. Dr. Bernier, Mr. Dupuy-Bruno, this is your quarterly capital update. Before I begin the presentation, I just want to remind all of you that Tice Elementary School is up for an Architectural Historical Award. If you're a member of Facebook and you are signed up for the Lee County School District Facebook site, there's a center and you can vote as many times as you want. So I hope you all will get out there and vote away. So you'll see many slides. We try to condense this for you. My team is currently working on pictures inside of our website with hopefully less than 3 clicks, so that's underway now. So we've given you slides that encompass all of our major programs that we're engaged in throughout this summer and going into the fall. So the first slide you see is all new construction projects. These are Cape Coral Technical College and Elementary School J, otherwise known as Emanciere, Franklin Parks Elementary School, G. Weaver Hips Pre-K Center, Lehigh Acres Addition, which is the new Lambs building, Transportation East Buckingham, which is our transportation building. So you can see we've updated you on where the status of the project is. Procurement stage for the first one, Cape Coral Tech, on schedule for Emanciere Elementary School. Foundations are going in currently. Franklin Parks, right now we have the GMP is going to be coming to the board for a phase 1 total project cost on the 28th of June. So you'll see that on the radar moving forward. G. Weaver Hips, we are in the design phase for that school, and the money has finally been released from the feds to move forward for 100% of the design costs. So we'll be able to get that cranking again. Lehigh Acres Middle School MM, again, that's on schedule. We pre-did the foundations last summer so we wouldn't disturb this school year. And once we get the foundations done at Emanciere right next door, then we'll start going vertical in both sites. Transportation East Buckingham Center, that's the new dispatch building that will be replacing the old portables out there. That right now is structurally up. The exterior roof and skin is going on, and once we get that weather tight, then we can start the interior finishes. Next slide represents our renovation projects, and here you will see a bunch of repipe projects that we're taking over from maintenance. You'll see some of our HVAC projects, our kitchen projects. Unfortunately, you had to cancel, or not fully, but cancel 2 of the kitchen renovation projects due to a lack of federal funding, some of the funding lines. However, we're moving forward with the fabrication of the freezer coolers for next summer. So the vendor is going to store those boxes for us, so next year when the funding is available, we can get those schools done. And we have several other schools moving forward. Let's see. Right now we have Cypress Lake High School. Repipe is in design. Fort Myers High School, repipe in design. Fort Myers Middle School, this was a repipe of the kitchen. That construction is underway. Harns Marsh Middle School, that will be pushed till the following summer for a freezer cooler. Lehigh Acres Middle portable renovation, that work is completed. Obviously, you've seen all the portables that were deployed and refurbished. Orangewood Elementary is in the procurement phase, contractual phase for HVAC. Skyline Elementary cooler freezer. We're revising that proposal. We weren't able to get all materials to do the full scale of that school, but we're going to move forward with some of the serving line changes to make it more efficient for the school, and that proposal should be up to the superintendent's desk here in the next week, and then we'll get that underway for that to be open for the start of school. And what I mean by that, this is one of those issues where procurement of materials, we're creating those front serving line areas where we typically have the rolling cages where we secure the kitchen. Those rolling cages may not be here in time for the opening of school. So we will have the openings done, the serving lines created, and we'll just make sure we secure our freezer cooler areas and our dry storage until the delivery about a month later of those doors. So we're starting to see material delays across the board. And we've got a couple other freezer coolers and Success Academy. We have a repipe there as well. Continuing on, we have some more renovation projects at Skyline Elementary cooler freezer, or Sunshine Elementary cooler freezer, Trafalgar Middle cooler freezer. That is another one that's being pushed till the summer, but we are fabricating the freezer cooler now, this year. And Villas Elementary sewer line, which we're in the design for a replacement of the piping. Remodel projects, Cape Coral Technical College. Right now we're in the procurement phase, and what that means is we are going through with the contract, we're developing scope, and we'll start negotiations with our vendors for architect, construction manager, and building official services. Fort Myers Technical College is on schedule. Right now that's underway. You folks approved the total project cost, and that work has begun. Veterans Park Academy of the Arts, the campus remodel. Right now you have the $17.6 million. That is the renovation of the old Lambs building, the middle school site. That is on schedule, on target, and opening August 8th for start of school. Riverdale High School campus, right, we are in the design phase. We're in schematic design phase right now. So that's where we stand. We had done some early field work. We had hoped to get our permitting from South Florida Water Management to do that parking area over the summer. Unfortunately, those permits weren't released. And so we're looking for like a January start. So you'll see me coming to you with a total project cost probably in or around December, beginning of January. Special projects. There has been a big push for traffic studies, primarily at the elementary schools. Right now, all the traffic studies have begun for these 6 sites. Gateway Elementary, Harns Marsh Elementary, Harns Marsh Middle, it's a combo study. Ramus C. Page Elementary, Tortuga Elementary, and Villas Elementary. And what this will do, it'll be a traffic count, a study, and the civil engineer will come with recommendations that they believe, should we engage in a project, will resolve those parent stacking issues and pushing traffic out onto the surface roadways. And last but not least, we have 20 single point entry projects. So that in combination with what maintenance projects are doing for single point and safety and security are doing with single point, we're touching all the schools everywhere this summer. So a lot of work going on. You can see right now we have about 17 of the projects are underway. We've already reached out to our vendors to ensure that they're going to have materials in time. Some have already stated that they couldn't get the doors needed, so the project is purchasing temporary doors until the final doors can be delivered in the fall. So we will be secure. However, again, we're realizing material delays, and we've tried to preempt that delay by pre-ordering materials, and so far it looks like we're going to have a pretty successful opening and completion of these projects. Okay. And some more single point entries. So right now, the last schools that we're working on, we're looking at our technical colleges, so we're still figuring out exactly the design we choose to use for Cape Coral Technical College, but we're pretty close. We have another meeting coming up here next week, and hopefully we can finalize that and get that under design and underway as well. And completed projects. So you're probably going to say, what do all the hieroglyphics on the right mean? Well, I asked the exact same question. So what it is this is the status of all our schools, and you have the Alva School K-8 Special Structural Survey. That should not be there. That should not, that's an error. All the structural surveys at all of the historic buildings have been completed. And right now we had a meeting with the maintenance staff. We're going to prepare to bomb and do some bug work at the various schools to kill the termites that have infested most of the historic schools. And the recommendations from the structural engineer in terms of what types of foundation work is needed in there. Some flooring work, some foundation piers repairs, some vapor barrier. I feel comfortable in telling you that we don't have anything imminent failure in those schools, so that's good news, and we'll be presenting that to the CAC committee in the fall as well. Cape Coral Elementary School, this is a HVAC reno. We're looking at 18 months. It's underway. We forecast and budgeted for $3.2 million. The final cost obviously is to be determined because we haven't completed that project yet. Dunbar Community School, this again was an analysis. Structural survey, there are no dollars attached to this. The survey was $17,860 to provide that survey. Edison Park, again, structural survey. The total project cost estimate was $20,000. It came in at $17,000 to provide that survey. Fort Myers, another historical survey, $17,867. Fort Myers High School HVAC renovation. That project is completed. $7.3 million was the total project cost, and right now we're going to be entering the closeout and the auditing phase. Fort Myers Middle Wraparound School, that isn't a project that was scheduled in the 5 or 10-year plan. However, part of the wraparound program that has grown momentum here in the district, they asked us to go out there and just do a quick schematic study of what we could do there and what the cost was. That study has been completed and is sitting right now, and it will be brought forward to academia, the capital committee, and possibly maybe engaging in a future project should we be able to afford that. Let's see, where are we at? J. Colon English Elementary, another structural study that's complete. Lee County Public Education Center, well, if you haven't noticed, all the fencing is gone, the banging is gone, and the smells have subsided. The project is done. So the trailer has moved. We're going to enter closeout phase and final auditing on that. So fortunately, we had a lot of heavy rains. I'm not aware of any departments having to use umbrellas or raincoats, so that was, I think this building was a success. Lehigh Acres Middle School, the old renovation of the portables, that was completed, just so you folks are aware. That was $500,000 worth of portable renovations and ramp work that had to occur. And some of that work had to occur on portables that we lease. So a critical thing here in the future with portables is we have to have people with eyes and ears watching, even if they're unoccupied, to make sure the air conditioning systems are working so mold isn't prevented. It's just future food for thought as we move portables around and take portables out of deployment and put them elsewhere. The quicker we get them on air conditioning, the least amount of renovation we're going to have to do. Southwest Florida Public Service Academy Special Project Gun Range. Again, this was a non-funded project. However, I was asked to go out and just do a study to see what it would take to put a gun range out at the FMTC campus. And it was part and parcel of the whole adult education and Todd Everly's police academy and how over the years it moves forward and with a future potential larger campus in the East Zone. So this was just something short term. How could we do this if the vocational school is on the 10-year map or further? So obviously that study came in and that's been issued, and it'll be sitting with curriculum, the superintendent's office, and the capital committee to make a determination as to where that may fall in the future in terms of funding or not. Tice Elementary, believe it or not, Tice Elementary, actually from a structural perspective, from the structural engineer and the architect's point of view, is in the best shape of all of our historic schools. So it's one of the oldest and it's in the best shape. Now, a lot of that has to do because it's had renovations over the years. But I was pleased to hear how well, and remember that building has a steel structure. Think of it as a steel cage that it was built around. Now, whereas our others are timber and so forth. So, you know, we can expect a lot more years out of that school, I would think. So probably outlive me for certain. So, and that is the report. And next up will be maintenance. In addition, you have a change order report for this month. Did you folks have any questions?
Ms. Morgan?
Yes. The change order for Veterans Park Academy for the Arts. Scott, for something this size, it would be really helpful if you made additional comments about what the work stemmed from. Okay. I know it's changes in what we've directed you to do, but if a member of the public looks at this and they just see a change order for $1 million, it raises questions. Do you understand which one I'm looking at?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Well, right now, I understand what you're saying, yes. Yeah, okay. Yeah, for something that big, absolutely.
Yeah, it just a little bit more information that suggests that this is part of a plan and not just, oh, we have a change order.
Right. Dr. Bernier, would you like me to expand on that a little bit for the public?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You will see this is our change order reporting, and I'm required by the state and by the auditing every month to come to you with any major change orders. This change order was the board had already approved a total project cost increase due to unforeseen conditions about 2 months ago at your board meeting, and that work is progressing. That work becomes that was one change order once you had approved it that I have to report against. So that all that work was additional unforeseen conditions in that renovation that you added to the total project cost, and this is me following up now that I'm engaging with the services with the change order. But I understand what you're saying. I could put a little bit more information that you've previously approved this amount by the board and so forth. Point taken.
Thank you. Ms. Gittens?
Okay. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
A couple of questions. One, on the transportation, I don't know which slide it was now, but on transportation remodel at Buckingham, we were told previously that that would be done this year. And I had heard, October, November or something of this year? And yet on here it's saying next year. Is that?
No, it'll be done this year, and quite frankly, that may have been me that misspoke at a previous meeting. It will be done this year. We have some items where we're waiting for long lead air conditioning systems. We're hopeful to have it done by October, and we're tracking that. So the building moving as quickly as we possibly can, predicated on final equipment to be delivered.
Okay, so it's slide number 3, and it says new facility, and then it says substantial completion date 6/23. The last column down there, the last row on slide 3.
Yeah, that's incorrect. That's incorrect. I expect this to be done in October.
Okay, thank you. So if that can be corrected, please.
Yes, ma'am.
And then, because this is on the board docs, it needs to be corrected so everyone can see.
Will do. Sorry about that.
That's all right. And then the portables at the Old Lambs, I thought we were told that after the end of the last year that they had made repairs on those portables, and I know there was some repair work done.
No.
It was not?
No, when that building changed and I had to utilize those portables to
Right.
support some of the school population while I renovated the inside of the old Lambs building, we had to go in and dump $500,000 to refresh those portables and get them into a condition to be usable.
Well, because originally, they were going to have, I think it was like fourth grade or whatever, in the old Lambs building, but in one section in the back, while the renovation was happening in the rest of the school. And then when they finished that part, they were moving into the portables, because halfway during the year.
I don't want to speak for what grade levels they put in there. I can only tell you that they needed all the portables, and I needed to get them reconditioned and ready for seats. I can't speak to grade
No,
level
that's
and
okay.
how many.
I mean, that's irrelevant. But the thing is, like halfway during the year, they had to move from that back part of the building into the portables. So were they fixed up prior to that, or were they fixed at the beginning?
Why they were in the building, we kept a section of the building
Right,
available to
right,
them
right.
as we started our demolition or renovation in the other parts of the building. And at
the
that moment
update.
in time, we refurbished all those portables in anticipation of knowing come January or Christmas break, I had to get those
Have
children
them
out
ready
of the
to
hard building to demo that area and into the portables to continue their classwork for the year.
Okay. The next question on Riverdale. It seems like it's going to be taking us a lot longer than expected. So how is this affecting their school choice, like right now?
Again, I don't do school choice or numbers. The program has always been budgeted at Riverdale High School to go out through 2025. We were trying to get an early jump by getting some of that site work done this summer. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get South Florida Water Management permitting in time to accomplish that. We were trying to accelerate the schedule a little bit. Budget and Finance was going to work on trying to push some of that funding from 2025 forward for me. We weren't able to get that summer work underway, so we're still on our normal schedule.
Okay, which is 2025, and that would be, I would like to pose that question for further answer at another time if you want, of how that is affecting the school choice and the numbers of students that will be able to go to Riverdale, because I'm getting quite a few calls about, well, you know, I'm on the list and how's the list, and, you know, I refer them back to, but if we had expected to open up some of those spaces in the fall, and we're not going to do that, how is that affecting school choice?
I will get you that information, Board Member Gittens. There is expectation, and the principal and the community did know this renovation project was going to get started. I've had some conversation with student enrollment and the planning department that I believe those numbers have been taken into account, but I will get you confirmation and make sure we respond in writing.
Okay, thank you, and the others I'll leave until later. Thank you very much, and thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Gittens. Any other questions or comments? I just have one question on the traffic studies at
Yes,
the
ma'am.
elementary schools. So do you have any data about incidents that have taken place or improvements that have occurred at other schools that have had an upgrade in their traffic flow?
I can get with safety to see if there's any incidents. I can tell you when we did our first round of traffic improvements about 5 years ago, they significantly improved some of the traffic backups at some of our schools. Unfortunately, when COVID came in, you had an abundance of parents now who are driving their kids. So where on schools that we've actually accommodated and expanded that parking, I'm at a loss now because the children aren't on the bus, they're in their parents' cars, and I'm hoping now that COVID somewhat is dissipating, we can somewhat go back to a normal situation. I'm sure Roger Lloyd is hopeful of that as well, so.
I'm sure he is. Thank you very much. Ms. Gittens?
I'll make those two corrections for you. Thank you.
I do have one more question. On slide 6, remodel projects, and you're talking about Veterans Park Academy remodel. Can you update us on, is that the Performing Arts Center? Is that the rooms in the VPA up front, or what is that?
What you have right now is the renovation of the old Lambs Middle School building.
Right.
Part of that board approval, or the expenditure that we have in the capital plan, was for the arts building as well. The increased funding in the renovation of the old Lambs building has eaten into the funding that would have supported the arts building. Subsequent to this, there has been some discussion as to doing a global survey of the entire master plan of that entire project, which I believe is underway now. That is going to provide you with several options as to what the board and the superintendent, based on recommendations from staff, can do at that campus. I'm not going to go forward with the arts building until that survey is complete and then the direction is clear as to funding and how the superintendent and the board wishes to go forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
Fixing up the old building and pausing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Rickenbacker. We appreciate it.
Have a good day. Thank you.
And now, yes. And now the maintenance update with Mrs. Barb Cedeno and her team. Welcome. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board members, Dr. Bernier, Attorney Kathy Dupuy-Bruno, and fellow colleagues. The maintenance services team presenting today consists of Mr. Christopher Stuber, our coordinator for maintenance services, Dr. Tony Dent McNair, our assistant director for maintenance services, and myself, Barbara Cedeno, director for maintenance services. For today's capital presentation, we have highlighted 65 capital projects the Maintenance Services Department is currently managing. As you will see on the PowerPoint slides, the projects are being performed throughout all zones in the district, as well as they vary by trade.
Under current renovations, one project group focuses on restroom renovations at Cypress Lake High School and Norfolk Myers High School as well. These projects will refresh the existing aged and outdated restrooms, will bring them up to date with new building codes. Both projects are in the final stages of design, and implementation work is scheduled to begin later this summer.
Other renovation projects target intercom upgrades and door and window improvements. Each of these projects supports safety and security initiatives for the district. With these projects, communication systems for staff and students is improved. Security of the buildings is boosted when the doors are upgraded. And last, our building assets are better protected during storm events with hurricane impact windows.
Also under the category of renovations, we have painting refreshes, chiller and emergency generator changeouts, and flooring upgrades. Exterior painting projects will protect and seal exterior surfaces from moisture intrusion. That can lead to microbial growth within buildings. Chiller changeouts will assist with the removal of excess moisture from buildings to create comfortable learning and working environments. And flooring upgrades not only improve the aesthetics of the facility, but also help with building health when floor coverings are breathable and avoid the trapping of allergens.
Under upcoming projects, one focus area is the main switchgear upgrades. These switchgears are the main hub of our facility's electrical systems. It is their responsibility to receive and disperse power to the subpanels throughout each facility. Improving these systems will help support the growing technology and electrical needs of our district facilities by ensuring they are reliable electrical systems. This also serves as a proactive approach in preventing unforeseen downtimes due to aged and outdated equipment. This slide here is a continuation of upcoming projects maintenance services will be managing.
The last part of our presentation focuses on completed capital projects. The most recent projects completed are either HVAC or lighting related. Other projects include blind upgrades and cabinetry improvements. As with the other renovation projects currently in progress, these projects also support safety, security, efficiency, and beautification of our district facilities. Thank you. This completes our portion of the presentation. Back to the superintendent for comments.
No comments from me, members of the board?
Thank you. Ms. Morgan, then Ms. Gittens.
I want to thank you for the way you gave us that lengthy report and then made a summary of the why of these things taking place. I appreciated how you presented the report to us in both stages. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Gittens.
Yes, thank you very much. Very good report. I just have a question. It may be kind of crazy, but what is on slide 12? Cape Coral High water. I could have dealt with the water reclamation if sewer hadn't been in front of it. So I just wonder what does that mean?
Okay.
Go ahead.
You have it?
You see it's in the middle of the page?
Yes. So Cape Coral High School Sewer Water Reclamation Project. So what's happening there is at the athletic fields, we actually have septic tanks that we have to completely terminate. So concurrently, we've been working with engineers to help us with the tie-in from, whatever the main sewer system is for the campus to tie into the city of Cape Coral sewer system. So with this project, we've been in the design phase for multiple months now, where we've undergone permitting as well. So we're trying to finalize that project. So this is that sewer reclamation type of project that we're trying to tie in that sewer system to the city's sewer lines.
Okay, thank you. I will sleep better now.
Any other questions, board members? I just want to thank you also for the efficient way you presented this information. And it's a lot of work. Great job. Thank you.
Very much.
Okay.
Okay.
So next we have early childhood and LAMP.
Once again.
And can we say welcome to the new people that it's their first time being up here, I think, from maintenance? Welcome to them. I think. I don't think they heard us.
Ms. Cedeno, could you introduce your team again so that we can welcome them as first-timers?
Yes.
Please.
So with me, I have Mr. Christopher Stuber. He is our coordinator for maintenance services. And also with me, I have Dr. Tony Dent McNair. She is our assistant director for maintenance services.
Thank you
Welcome
so
and
much
thank
and
you.
welcome.
Okay. So. So with us, we have Mary Grace Romo. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, board members, Superintendent Bernier, and Attorney Dupuy Bruno. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm here to share LAMP updates and early childhood updates. The terms early childhood, pre-K, VPK, Head Start are often used very interchangeably. I do it myself. But today I really wanted to showcase to you the variety and expanse of programs that we offer under the term early childhood learning services. In actuality, we provide multiple programs for children birth to 5, each with their own funding sources, local, state, and federal requirements, and targeted demographics. Our work is richly embedded into the world of grants, local partnerships, contracts, work groups, but the common outcome is for children to be socially and academically ready for kindergarten. In order to accomplish our goals, we have a large staff of over 200 employees who serve about 1,000 children at 18 sites throughout the district. These employees include teachers, paraprofessionals, resource teachers, nurses, social workers, licensed mental health counselors, family advocate specialists, administrators, and support staff. It is an amazing group of people who are truly dedicated to early childhood. Our leadership structure is designed to support the requirements of each of the distinct programs. Each of the administrators are responsible for service area teams such as health, family engagement, and curriculum. In addition, administrators support a group of classrooms and work collaboratively with their schools. There have been several challenges to overcome this year as we've worked to serve our children and families. Like other departments and schools, we are facing staffing challenges, filling vacancies, the stresses of COVID, including losses, isolation, and keeping safe teacher ratios. All of these things have affected the mental health and wellness of our staff and students. One of the greatest challenges we are facing is an increase this year in chronic absenteeism. We are taking measures to address this through a strategic action plan and committee through a nonprofit agency called Attendance Works. I've said to the board before, if the children are not in school, we can't get them ready for kindergarten. This graphic breaks down our chronic absenteeism. Breaking it down this way will allow us to address family needs in a tiered fashion through our strategic attendance plan, which will include relationship building, recognition, data monitoring, removing barriers, and building school family traditions. We have many new team members in early childhood. It has been a year of transition. We have focused on strategies to strengthen our team, create a shared vision of quality over compliance, and provide effective comprehensive services to children and families. These are some of our accomplishments. This year, we focused highly on improving safety of our children. We inspected every pre-K playground. There's a different lens you use to ensure that a preschool playground is safe. We walked the playgrounds, we inspected for rust, we checked the strength of things, and we found there were a lot of safety issues. And so we prioritized and began repairs and replacements of many playgrounds, and we have several next year that will also be improved. We've also worked very hard to examine every position's roles and responsibilities. We're a new team. There are many new employees, as I stated before, and it was important to identify each person's roles and responsibilities and make sure that each member is working on the right work. This increases our organization, efficiency, and quality of service. This is a graph that shows a 4-year span of Flickr's readiness scores. Flickr's is an assessment that children have taken upon kindergarten entry for the state. We started lower than other districts, and I'm going to use the cursor to call your attention to this green line. This is Lee County. And although we started lower, we have improved over these 4 years and maintained our progress. And you can see how the green line levels out and has maintained. And if you look at the other districts, you notice there has been a sharp drop for many of them during these 2 years of pandemic. It's important to note that the data this represents is a representation of all 6,000 plus entering kindergartners in Lee County. Early Childhood Learning Services touches about 800 of these new kindergartners. With this slide, you can see we are one of 3 of the 10 largest Florida districts with this favorable trend. This is very encouraging and a springboard for our continued improvement.
Great.
All of our 4-year-olds take the Florida voluntary pre-K assessment 3 times during their pre-K year. This assessment is a summative assessment, and it measures where children should be by the end of pre-K. As you can see from the bar graph, the growth for assessment period 2 is quite a jump from where the children started when they came in. And the trend, as you'll see in the bar graph, is for our children to make huge gains in the 3rd assessment period. So our children just took, before leaving school that last month, the 3rd assessment. We don't have the data yet, but we expect the data to be on par with that last blue line that you see, which is last year's 3rd period assessment growth. So we took a very close look this year at our data, our program standards, our student needs, our family needs, and we identified our 22-23 school year priority initiatives that you see here on this slide. To support our children's continued progress and development, we have chosen 2 curricula. The first is an engaging online software called Imagine Learning. This is a supplemental curriculum to address literacy and math. Our second curriculum is a positive parenting curriculum called Conscious Discipline. Head Start requires that we offer parents a research-based parenting curriculum. We chose Conscious Discipline because it aligns with our classroom curriculum and reinforces the ability for the teacher and the parent to work together on social skills and positive discipline and self-regulation. Pre-K expansion is a major district initiative. The expansion work group recommenced this spring. The group is represented by many district departments, including budgets, grants, planning, early childhood, and academic services. According to Florida Kids Count data, there are over 7,500 3- and 4-year-olds not in school in Lee County. While some parents may choose to wait, there are many that are missing out on the pre-K experience due to cost and limited access. Our committee looked at what the other Big Ten districts are doing to provide greater pre-K opportunities. The primary models combine the state of Florida voluntary pre-K voucher, which provides a free half day to all 4-year-old children in the state, with Title I funds or parent fees in order to provide a full day of pre-K. The committee is working on a roadmap that will allow us to expand opportunities in the future and give us a clear path to move forward. These are some of the specific expansion efforts we are looking forward to. Specifically, we are focused on reviving our preferred provider program with our private community providers. It's of great importance to us. We want to support our community providers through collaboration among pre-K and kindergarten teachers and leaders. This includes school forums that allow for articulation and visits to kindergarten classrooms. Another effort is moving our Head Start classrooms to brick and mortar buildings to align with federal expectations, and also identifying new spaces for pre-K classrooms. Now we're going to transition to our Lee Adolescent Mothers Program. This is a state-funded program that supports youth and teen parents through comprehensive services. LAMP students often face many challenges. For example, we currently have a student with a baby in the NICU. We have young people who have experienced trauma. We have young parents who are homeless, who are struggling with postpartum depression, young fathers and mothers trying to financially care for their babies while also staying in school. This incredible program and the incredible teachers and staff of LAMP become very invested in each and every one of our students. The ultimate goal is for our young parents to graduate high school, become great parents, and fulfill their dreams. LAMP teens and youth can attend the LAMP Center on Michigan Avenue, or they can remain in their traditional high school and still receive all of the services: childcare, transportation, social services, mental health services. We are very excited that next year we will be sharing our campus with Grad Academy. This will maximize the resources that LAMP possesses and offer more options for our young parents. So you may have noticed that the Lee Adolescent Mothers Program also serves young fathers. This name of our program doesn't represent all of our young parents, and so we formed an ad hoc committee. We are following the name-changing process, and we worked with communications to distribute a survey. We are awaiting those results, and on Friday, the ad hoc committee will meet to look at the community suggestions and identify the names that we will present to you at a future board briefing. Our goal is to have a name that represents all of our wonderful young parents. Thank you for allowing me to share these updates with you. And now I will turn it over to Dr. Bernier.
Just briefly, board members, we are very, very lucky in our school district to have somebody like Mary Grace Romo. She is a content expert when it comes to this information. She has been working hard along with her staff to ensure compliance with federal regulation. As you can imagine, the younger children get, the more rules are associated with how you interact and how you work with them. She's very adept at moving through. She's got a great focus on continuing to want to improve our green line. I love the fact that you used your cursor to draw that line out for us. But she's working on that aspect of trying to continue to raise our performance with our youngest children so that we can have them as kindergarten ready as possible. I've shared with her and some of the other people that I've interacted around early childhood. Our goal would be that all children have that opportunity to arrive to kindergarten being able to read. It's a very large lift, a very large goal. But for those of us who could afford private pre-Ks and had parents reading at home to them and supporting their children, we know that it's possible. We have to make sure that we have the opportunities for all of our parents to have access to that type of education, and Mary Grace is committed to making that happen in our school district, and want to thank her for her service. We'll now entertain your discussion and listen for points of clarification where we would need to create further action.
Yes, thank you. Board members, Ms. Vaughn.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. The figure 63 enrolled youth and teens, is that just at the Michigan Avenue, or does that include at their home schools? And I'm curious how many students right now are being served at their home schools?
That is the total number. And we have 5 students being served at their traditional schools. We've been working with the high schools to increase access and understanding of what the program is, so that we can attract more teens. I do believe, and statistics show, that there are more young parents in Lee County than our 63, and so we've got to get the word out.
Yeah, and I have kind of expansions on that. All right, so when these students, let's say it's a mother with a young baby, is at her high school, is the placement of the child on her, or is it something that the program does?
So the placement of the child is something that we support, and we are able to cover the cost of childcare and transportation and support the young person in selecting a childcare facility that she or he feels confident with. And we create a contract with that agency. It's monitored, attendance is monitored, but the student is supported completely.
Okay, and I'll be honest, I see a problem with that. I'm very, very familiar with LAMP as a guardian ad litem. I had 2 young mothers that went through the program. I was also, before I was on school board, a volunteer at LAMP as a volunteer tutor working in the little store. So I'm very, very familiar with that. And I know that some of the young mothers are nursing their children, so their babies. And so obviously, the young ladies that are at their home school don't have that option because the child would be at a distance, correct? And the other thing that I wonder about, and I'm all for the kids, the girls and the young men, to have a full school life, so to speak. And if they were involved prior to the pregnancy and the child involved in band or clubs or whatever, that they get to do those things. So it's not that I'm not supportive, but I see some issues. For instance, transportation is huge. So I'm going to use a girl for this. So the young lady would take her bus to her school, but there's no provided transportation, am I right, for the child. The young lady would have to get her child to the chosen site, daycare site.
We actually do contract with the child care facilities that provide transportation so that the child can be transported, and the mother can then take her bus and go to school or drive to school. And to your first question, each student that comes into LAMP has a very unique story, and you know that, having been guardian ad litem, there's as many stories as there are kids. And so part of what we do when they arrive is have that conversation and ask the questions that need to be asked to help provide guidance. Ultimately, it's that young person's choice, or that young person's choice and their parents' choice. And they need to make a decision. Do they prefer to be on the LAMP campus, or do they prefer to be in their traditional high school? There are possibilities of opening other nurseries at local high schools, and in many districts that is done, and I know it has been done in our district as well. And so there are opportunities there. This year, we really focused on expanding at least the choice, because students were automatically being sent to LAMP and not really understanding that they had a choice of remaining at their high school and having services, or coming to a more intimate setting where the babies are at the nursery and mothers are able to breastfeed and be with their babies throughout the day.
Okay, but it's not really a choice for many of them, and I'm sorry, I kind of shook my head when you said the student and parent, because both of the young ladies that I advocated for were in the foster care system, one of whom lived in a group home, did not live with her baby, who was placed elsewhere, and the other was lucky enough to be in a foster home. And during my tutoring at LAMP, I talked to a lot of the girls who, some of whom were either married or living with the baby daddy, and there's. When we say choice and we say the parent, it's been my experience in getting to know some of the girls that were there, and this is a few years ago, that often a parent is not involved, because typically if there's a parent involved, there's more support. It's also my experience that some of the girls, when they get pregnant, they're kicked out of their home, and that's how they wind up in foster care. The other thing is that what I'm wondering is, for those that would prefer being in the more intimate setting, I know in the past the Michigan Avenue Early Childhood Center was the place where, and it was particularly important to the young lady who didn't live with her baby, who was placed elsewhere, because she at least got a chance to see him. How are the openings in that? Are all of the young parents that want to go to the current campus, the traditional LAMP campus, have they all been able to have their babies placed in the early childhood facility?
Yes, they have, and that option is very desirable for most of our students. They want to be with their babies and near their babies. They're young parents. Many of us understand that experience of being a young parent, going through all kinds of changes, trying to make your way in the world. And as you said, Mrs. Vaughn, many of them come from a group home. Many of them have no other support than, you know, what they can find at school. And so the relationship and the bonding between the young parent and the child is of critical importance. We find that the handful of students that have chosen to stay at their traditional schools do have a support system in place, and so it works for them. But for many, and I could probably say most, the support system is LAMP. It is the school, it is the teachers, it is the nurses, the social workers.
Okay, and I'm just going to close with one comment. I'm happy to hear that none of the girls are being turned away because there are placements for their children, and the idea that in the future that perhaps some of our schools, maybe one in each zone, has somehow a nursery attached, to me is a triple win situation, because, and actually I talked to Mr. Dodig one time about as a benefit, especially for some of our SPALC employees, that you know, very low cost childcare would be a wonderful benefit and a way to retain some of our people that, I mean, with inflation and childcare costs, have to drop out of work because the work isn't paying them much more than the daycare. And the other thing I want to say is, you know, we differentiate, of course, between finding child care, and many of our lower income parents will just, you know, a neighbor or somebody else with a child that's staying at home, and their child care is basically the kids in front of the TV all day. It's not the high quality daycare, early education that they get through programs like this. And so the reason I say it's a triple win is then we take those children who have been in these programs with the teen moms, and they've had the high quality, and guess what? They're going to be much more kindergarten ready. So I'm really hoping to see an expansion of the program. I hope we start thinking out of the box a little bit more with establishing these things on campus. It's even an opportunity for maybe some of the moms. And I know, like Estero High School has the early learning, the little daycare, not daycare, but the early learning academy. And I mean, there's so many manifestations that we can do to expand this, and every single one of them equals the goal of getting one of our teen parents to graduate and have a better outcome in future, and having those children be more ready for kindergarten. I know there are some counties that have developed these programs. I started a little research, but I haven't gotten very far in it. But I'm just saying, as a outgoing school board member this fall, one of my wishes would be to see this development of the program continue and prosper and thrive. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Okay, I think Ms. Morgan had her hand up next, and then Ms. Patrica.
So first of all, kudos to the staff. I'm looking at these numbers, the voluntary pre-K assessment. I mean, you held the line or even improved despite the challenges that you present. So clearly, you all are looking at your practices and you are making a difference in terms of what you're doing for these kids. With respect to the flickers, we are second lowest in the 10.
Yes.
In 18, we're second lowest, but we made improvement. We grew, while other districts did not. Do you have a clue as to what is going on? What is your focus that is changing this trajectory?
Well, I would like to say I had a clue, but I don't. I do want to mention that this data is from last year. I wasn't here at the time, but it is fascinating. You know, a global pandemic, and we held our own. We have been investigating, and we have been digging, and we don't have an answer to that, Mrs. Morgan, but we are very motivated because it is a springboard, it's momentum, and we want to keep it going. We want to grab it by the tail and really dig in, which is why we are focusing on some supplemental materials that will meet children where their need is and help accelerate them.
So my last comment would be, you need a jump shift. I mean, it's not enough to just continually improve. We need a significant new paradigm or whatever operating in this area. And Lee County can show everybody else how to do it. So anyway, those are my comments.
Thank you very much. Ms. Patrica?
Hi, good afternoon. Slide 15, the first item under future expansion efforts, indicates that we're going to recruit private providers for Lee County Preferred Provider Partnership Program. Somewhere in the recesses of my memory, I think I recall having tried this before as a district and that it wasn't successful. What will we be doing differently this time in order to make this successful, please? If I recall, it wasn't successful because daycare providers could not afford to hire workers who were capable of teaching the curriculum.
Well, I have what I've learned in the last 7 months, and what I understand is that there were a group of providers who wanted to participate. I believe there has been some transition, and it has fallen by the wayside a bit. But part of the problem was there was a heavy lift with data and expectations for business owners. And so our committee has been rethinking, repackaging, and looking at what does the partnership truly mean. The reason why these partnerships are important is especially the relationship between the school and the local providers that are sending kindergartners up. I'm not sure, to answer your question, what will be different. I don't have all of the details of what was done over the past years, but our team is really committed to relationship building, and I think that it's some grassroots building trust and truly making it worth the provider's while to collaborate with us. It's got to be a win-win situation. It's got to not interfere with the running of their business, and it's got to add value. So some of the initiatives are in that relationship between the school and the private providers are the kindergarten visits for the pre-K classes to come and see. The teachers, kindergarten and pre-K teachers, having communication and collaboration, the articulation so that kindergarten teachers know each child that's coming up to that school and what they can do to support and pick up where the pre-K teacher left off. It's strange because early childhood, in general, works very much in isolation. And it really is part of a bigger picture. And so without our community partners, we're operating in isolation. We want to break those barriers down. And we are engaging in grassroots efforts right now to do that.
I appreciate that. If we, may I? Yes. If we could have an update in the board weekly update about what's going to be different about this program that was unsuccessful previously, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
And I would like to just make a comment. I think that when the state got involved, it was a structural process, but it wasn't a relationship process. I think the complete difference is that instead of going to the providers and saying, this is what you have to do and this is what we need, it's the building of the relationship between the provider and the school. That is what this work group is really focused on, because initially the demands of the pre-K providers were more than they could handle. So what is it that what's really important? And that's our focus. And so I think they're just completely rethinking, redoing how they integrate with or collaborate, cooperate, whatever, with these providers. I'm optimistic. I know there's a lot of passion on the part of the people on the team who are involved. Certainly some principals and schools are more invested in this than others, but that's okay. You want the early adapters to experience the kind of success you can have, and then you can branch out. So that's just my observation.
Thank you, Mrs. Morgan. Any other comments or questions for Ms. Romo? I just want to thank you very much. I had some past experience at LAMP for a couple of summers, and I think you're doing an amazing job. So thank you very much. A much-needed service.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I'm just going to comment, board members, that it's 4:07, so we're over time, and we still have another presentation, public comment, and board member comments. And we have a celebration for the District Cambridge Award reception at 5 in the atrium. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's current attention. And now we have our next presentation on job descriptions, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bernier in a minute, but first I'm going to say happy birthday to Rob Dodig. That's right, happy birthday. Who is our other presenter. Happy birthday. And
thank you. I couldn't find a greater audience to spend it with.
38. I know you're thrilled. Dr. Bernier.
Madam Chair, Rob's going to present some information today regarding the information I've been sharing with you one-on-one in direct reports regarding some need for some organizational change. I've worked with the Budget and Finance Department. I do have an accompanying org chart. The org chart was not provided to you specifically at this point because I've not yet had the opportunity, based upon cabinets still being on Wednesdays following this meeting. I will go over the org chart because there could be some impact vertically. These are really the horizontal. This is the big horizontal line after you see superintendent, except for one position. There is a position that this district desperately needs, and that is someone in a risk management role. One of the first things I had to do when I got here was evaluate a helicopter landing on a high school field and sign off. I needed to send that to the same person who helps me choose dental insurance. She's a very wonderful person and very, very good at insurance. But we really need someone in this day of OSHA and all the other types of complaints that a school district can get. We really need to have someone who's in the process of always attempting to mitigate our risks so as to lower our costs and lower our exposures. So other than that one position, these are all changes structurally at a chief level. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Dodig, and then we'll be prepared to handle your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Bernier. Good afternoon. The first job description before you is the Chief Communications and Government Relations proposed title. That is, in essence, replacing a job description that you had approved previously called the Strategic Engagement Officer. The interest here is that we would combine both the communications function and a government relations function that the school district currently does not have. So that is what is before you here, and I'm here to listen to any comments or any comments Dr. Bernier has.
Okay, Ms. Morgan.
So just a couple of comments. You say state and federal. They're advocating state and federal, not local. So, for example, some of the issues, some of the MOUs we have with, the county commission, some of the, I just wonder if
Could certainly be put in there.
well, I'm not saying it should, I'm just asking the question. The other comment I would make is that I'm very concerned that experience in government communications, journalism, marketing, broadcast media, or public relations is preferred. I don't think you can put someone in this position who does not have some aspect of that experience. And so I would say experience is required in these fields. But those are my comments on this particular.
Can you please repeat the last thing that you said? I'm sorry. I wasn't following where you are on the job description.
So on minimum qualifications, 7 years of experience in government communications, journalism, marketing, broadcast media, or public relations preferred. And I think that preferred is too weak. We've learned as a board that if we don't do prescriptive job descriptions, we can get caught with people who don't have the experience set that we feel is necessary. And frankly, to say that none of these things, or maybe one of these things, is okay, and I'm concerned about that. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Did you have any more comments, Ms. Patrica?
No, I just want a clarification.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Gittens?
Yeah, I'm just a little confused on that minimum qualifications too, because when you look at bullet 1 and bullet 2, okay, so the first one, communication broadcast, the second one is government communications, is it?
Government, comma.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Government, comma, then communications. It's kind of repetitive. And I agree with Ms. Morgan that it's important enough to perhaps combine those and make it a mandatory, required. It just seems saying the same thing. Maybe I'm just reading it wrong.
The first bullet's a degree requirement. The second bullet is job experience.
Okay.
Can I weigh in? First of all, I would like local added. That is an error that Rob and I made in our communications with each other. We've always wanted this position in the government relations to have a local, state, and federal presence to interact with all those delegations, and those delegations are extremely important to us. As we all know, we have to continue to consistently maintain those lines of communication, and this position would be responsible for it. Board Member Morgan, I agree with you that the experience is vital. The difficulty was if you put mandatory, they would have to have experience in every single one of these areas, the way I believe.
It says or.
As long as I retain the flexibility to find somebody who's got a comms background and a government relations background, and there should be additionally, eventually we need to engage in a conversation of somebody who works specifically for this person in government relations. We have a communications team, but we're also going to need to find, and I've shared with all of you, we're going to need to find an individual, reading it publicly into the record because maybe they're listening. We're going to need to find an individual who's tired of working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for $30,000 as a legislative aide, who was willing to work 7 days a week,
24 hours.
40 hours, 80 hours, somewhere in that range, for a little bit more money. That's really my experience with this position, is this person would oversee the larger picture, but the communications team and an individual who has that experience of interacting with the legislators could be our sole presence in Tallahassee when session is going on, our singular point of contact, and our daily report back to me and to others regarding what's transpiring so that we can give you real-time updates. I want to be clear, the Capital Strategies Group has been a wonderful group to work with, and our plan was to continue their contract going into next year while we transitioned our people. We still may want to look for another opportunity with another lobbying firm, so that if we wind up without having a chief of government relations and an employee, that we're still prepared to have a presence in Tallahassee in the spring.
Thank you. I appreciate the vision.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Patrica?
I don't think I saw it in here as a required skill, and maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I just didn't read it this way, but when I look at the top bullet on page 2, serve as an ambassador for the district as needed and articulate the district's vision, mission, and goals to external stakeholders and partner organizations. I believe you need someone who's a good public speaker as well. And again, I don't know that I saw that in the skills and abilities, oral and written communication skills with the ability to organize, proofread, write, and edit materials is not the same as being a compelling public speaker. And to me, the two are, am I reading this wrong? You look confused.
No, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm processing. I think it's a vital aspect to a person's ability to speak publicly. This would not be the mouthpiece for our district. We have a PIO, we have a public information officer. They're very good at it. They certainly work with me on a daily basis so that I can get better. We're currently trying to establish the after-action research that I've been asking for since my first interview, so that we can go through the videotape and make additional changes to how I approach, especially with reporters and other people. I will look for someone who is a communicator, and certainly their ability to speak publicly, have the experience of working and interacting with state, local, and federal officials and a school board would be something I'd look for in every chief that I have, not just a communications and government relations officer. I'd look for the same in an operations person that we're currently reviewing resumes for. I'll be looking for the same thing in any other changes at the chief level that may be anticipated or may occur without any knowledge, because people come and go from organizations. We're always going to look for quality people who have a basic set of skills, and then on top of it can bring these skills to the table as well.
Ms. Jordan and Ms. Gittens?
Thank you. Okay, I guess I was just a little bit confused because I thought is this person not the person who would be working with the lobbyist in? Definitely, thank you for adding the local, because I'm just thinking in my head how Miami has it, or Broward and all the other different places. They have the individual person as such here, but then they also have another person who is their lobbyist, and this person works directly with them to bring them everything that we are wanting to do.
There are two different models that are out there. There is a model where you could have somebody like this that works directly with an outside lobbyist. There are districts who have this position and then have a junior staff member, somebody at the coordinator or director level, who is the point of contact, who goes up and lobbies on their behalf. We had an outside lobbyist in Las Vegas, but we also had 2 people in our government relations office that were full-time in Carson City during the times that the legislature was meeting. Orange County Public Schools also has that same arrangement. They have a chief who's communications and government relations related, but then has an individual who is up in Tallahassee doing their work, and they have a consultant on top of that. This is serious work. It's important to have a voice when our legislature is meeting, and even more important to have people maintaining that relationship when they're not meeting. That may be the most critical component of what we need. I think you have covered sessions beautifully with the organizations that you've hired to help be your voice. We need to be doing the maintenance on the ground right now. As we build your legislative platform, somebody needs to be talking with them and being able to feed back to all of you. This would be the first step. A junior staff member reporting to this person would be something we would come to later on.
Thank you. Ms. Gittens.
To Ms. Patrica's point about being a communicator, I believe under minimum qualifications, the second bullet, where it says years of experience, 7 years experience in communications, journalism, marketing, broadcast, media, et cetera, public relations, would cover that, would it not? That, you know, if you've got 7 years of doing that, it would cover your ability to communicate to the public. I'm just not saying that.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, under essential job functions, and maybe this is not an appropriate place to put this, but I see that this person would have to, you know, it says reports, represents the school board, the superintendent, but as part of that representation, especially of the school board with our varying opinions about, you know, what we're looking for in terms of legislative relationships, I would think that, you know, somewhere it might be mentioned that the person meets regularly. I mean, how is this person going to know what we're really about, or, I mean, without the regular meeting with us? And I would say also the person would have to, at some point, go to the schools and you know, I mean, there's a, or would this be an underling? That's a bad word, isn't it? Would it be an underling? But I kind of like, you know, sometimes somebody reporting to someone, you've already lost one level of communication. So, and I have a second question, but if you would, does that, is that part of, isn't that part of the job function? Would it be appropriate to mention?
This individual would report directly to me. This is not a board employee. So it would be my job to work with all of you, with them potentially being present.
Okay.
In ongoing conversations. This person would be integral in the part that we started to launch yesterday, which is the beginning of a legislative platform for you. This person would be integral in that role. But I want to have that clear delineation that this is a staff member, this is a chief reporting to the superintendent. I would be accountable for their outcomes and their expectations and how they're evaluated.
Okay, and that actually was the second, so this maybe is for Dr. Bernier. Chief Communications and Government Relations. I know you talked about the horizontal. Typically, a chief has, you know, some vertical. Is this just kind of a standalone position as chief that you and this person would work together, or how do you envision it fitting into communications department?
This would be the chief communications officer. This would be the person responsible for the communications department and all of our work, whether it be website, print, all that. And then on top of that, they would carry the bucket of government relations work, both locally, federally, and at the state level, both here, off-season, and during session.
Okay, and that makes a little more sense to me, that this person would actually be chief on the communications department, except, okay, I'm just getting caught up in a little bit of the semantics of the title, but that makes more sense, that that person would be in that position. And you said you have not yet worked out the organizational chart in terms of...
The organizational chart is complete, but due to the it's complete in a draft form. That information has not been shared with you because it has not yet gone before my cabinet. And some of the vertical alignment when we get to another job description could shift. This particular position would be communications and government relations. They would be picking up no additional duties in the current org chart.
Okay, but yet this person would be in charge of, let's say, any press releases.
Press releases, crisis communication, ongoing communication,
all of that,
the
okay.
vision, mission of the school district, community engagement work, yes.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say my history with this, and you've all heard it, the visuals of the organizational chart, the horizontals and the verticals really helped me. So getting that in my head helps, and hopefully as soon as you vet some of these things and work it out with cabinet, you'll have an updated organizational chart for
My
us.
plan was to try to wait on these job descriptions for the last meeting in July.
Okay.
But if I wait, the last meeting in June, if I wait, some of the talented people that we have discussed and we would like to recruit are going to be either contractually obligated in July or they're going to be gone.
Okay.
So
yeah.
this is something that I needed to move forward at this time. As soon as, I believe that org chart will be fine in cabinet tomorrow. We've had individual conversations with every one of the impacted directors. They understand the where and the why. I've had some of those conversations with all of you, that certain things in our org chart and how they're aligned maybe at one time made sense, but food service and finance, for instance, Amy, sorry that you're hearing this for the first time today. Susan knows it. Food service and finance does not make sense. That's an operational function of the school district.
They both start with the letter F.
Okay, then that really helps, because I saw another job description on here that might also bump some things on the org chart, so thank you.
Thank you, and I hope we can stay on topic because it is 4:26 and we have to be in the atrium at 5, and we still have
Oh, wow.
the rest of this presentation and public comment, just saying. So let's move on.
Okay, so the next job description is deputy superintendent, which we don't currently have in the district. This is an entirely new job description, and certainly Dr. Bernier can discuss his philosophy behind this, but I'm able to answer any questions you might have regarding the job description.
We are a school district now of over almost 100,000 students, getting larger. A deputy superintendent would split off the requirements of the split off some of the requirements placed on our current CAO, our Chief Academic Officer. Last time I checked with Jeff, he has a number of direct reports, upwards to 30. There also needs to be a very specific function in this role with the executive directors. Those executive directors need to be more school-based and less curriculum-focused. They need to be our eyes and our ears in our schools. When we were talking about innovation schools today, and I talked about that process for school and classroom visits, those executive directors need to be doing that work, and the deputy needs to be driving that school improvement work. The CAO will remain in the curriculum and instruction side of the house, developing professional development, making sure our materials are aligned to standard, doing textbook adoption, doing challenged materials work. But the deputy superintendent would elevate our level of supervision of our schools and, quite honestly, move the accountability needle in the correct direction. And we've had those conversations separately and individually.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Morgan, then Ms. Gittens, then Ms. Patrica.
Yeah, so just want to point out that this is a contract. And secondly, the essential job.
That needs to be changed. I'm sorry, you caught the error. It says contract. It does say that. That wouldn't be a contract, I don't believe.
Okay. Essential job functions. First one, to provide leadership to create and sustain an environment in which region leadership principals, teachers, parent, guardians. I'm not sure I understand what that means.
Ms. Morgan, I'm sorry. I was making a note of your prior.
Okay.
I hate to make you restate it.
Under essential job functions, the word region before the list of people.
I saw that. I was going to point that out to you. That's just a typo.
Oh, Okay, I didn't know what that meant.
Yep,
Thank
sorry.
you.
It has to do with how our executive directors are split out based upon elementary, middle, and high school.
Oh,
So we're-
level.
By level, not by region.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Region may be from somewhere else where we were
Okay.
getting this from.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gittens?
That was one of my questions, whether the, in this case, academic, are you calling them regional, or what do you call it, regional?
My plan at this time is not to adjust our structures regarding our executive directors and the supervision of schools.
Right, but I'm just saying, would those individuals report to the deputy as opposed to reporting to the
They would report to
curriculum?
the deputy. The CAO would stay in charge of the curriculum and instruction part of the division.
That was my question, okay.
This creates almost like a separate school office. The CAO would report up through the deputy would report to the superintendent.
And how would that numerically fix the 30 that report to one person right now?
Well, it takes the executive directors off of the CAO's plate, then the CAO and the deputy could look through the rest of the organizational chart, make some determinations about some additional people being observed and evaluated by the deputy. It would give us the additional person we need in order to split all of those functions that are currently housed under the CAO. What Jeff Spiro does for this district is incredibly difficult work, and the most important work we have. If we're going to spend resources anywhere, it should be on the teaching and learning or the academic services side of the house.
Thank you. Ms. Patrica?
So the bottom bullet on page 1 talks about special attention on improving student achievements of ELLs and special education students. I wonder why that's not expanded to, I mean, to me, that talks about achievement gaps, and I wonder why that isn't expanded to include achievement gaps for all stakeholders in our system.
Certainly, that is the avenue of the entire job description, is to look at all the student data, look at all gaps, and making sure that we do the very best we can to close the situation in some of our data. We certainly can make that. I hesitate to use achievement gap.
I understand, and
There's a better phrase for us
thought
to
it
use
was
than that.
artfully stated. I just wondered why it was those two groups as opposed to more groups of our students that struggle.
Can do that.
And then my second question is more general, and it can be addressed in the future. Seeing the org chart is going to be very important, and understanding where all this fits in and how are we paying for it. And you've already mentioned those, but I know that I'm a little shy, gun shy, as I've told you, about approving job descriptions because of what it means for us going forward. So having those answers in place before I approve this is hard, but you also know that you have my support and trust.
Well, there'll be another opportunity in June for your actual approval. This is, in a sense, a first read, an opportunity for Rob and I to get your feedback on these publicly so that we can go deeper and make those corrections and make sure that they're ready for that final June meeting for an approval.
Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gittens?
Yes, based on Ms. Patrica's comment at the bottom of page 1, that last bullet, I understand what she's saying, and are we limiting, or is the verbiage intended to cover all academics?
We can certainly rewrite and have it cover more of the academic situation. I was looking specifically at past research that had been put in front of all of you.
Right.
In the increasing number of ELL students, our gaps currently with our special education students, and our declining graduation rate. Those were three heavy factors that I wanted to make sure that as we looked for a person, they had experience in making some changes to those areas in particular. The entire strategic plan certainly lives with your superintendent, but the deputy superintendent on the academic side would be responsible for helping me accomplish those outcomes that are outlined in Envision 2030.
So just a suggestion then, where it says improving achievement for all students, and, e.g., or for example, something that states that there's more than just those things.
Rob, we can have a conversation offline, and I think we could add to that sentence, improving school graduation rates, and something around the goals outlined in the strategic plan, because we do have closing of achievement as part of the strategic plan outcomes.
Okay.
We covered it with the achievement of all students.
Well, and I kind of go back to our discussions about, what is it, objectives. What were we talking about yesterday? I forgot it now.
Outcomes.
Outcomes. And that somehow, because looking forward, if this is the job description, when we look at the evaluation should come out of this. Therefore, if we have specifics like that, it's easy to create an evaluation process.
This would be the job description. You are 100% correct. The job description is the basis for an evaluation tool.
Thank you. Okay. I think we need to move.
Two more.
Mr. Dodig?
So the next one is entitled Chief Construction and Facilities Officer.
Risk management.
Take you through the same exercise. I don't know if Dr. Bernier has any initial comment.
This is a position we do not currently have. There did exist at some point in the school district. Operations is a massive job title in our school district. It includes a variety of different organizations. I won't belabor you with what is already under operations, but I believe, based upon the half-penny sales tax and a need to be more transparent, to work with the Oversight Committee, ISOC, and to make sure that construction, facilities maintenance, and planning are all done appropriately so that we can not only site our schools, build our schools, but then properly assign through student enrollment and our choice programs, assign the student population that will support an educational model. It would be vital for this school district to split off its construction and facilities work from its operations. Our operations in transportation, food service, procurement, and all those other areas that are aligned potentially other places at this very moment would be better served if the operations chief concentrated on operations and we had somebody full-time looking at our construction and facilities and our planning department.
Excellent. Okay, any comments? Ms. Morgan?
Well, I seem to be first up on all of these today. But anyway, I love the idea of including planning. I think that's critical, pulling that into construction and facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dodig?
All right. This is the Director of Risk Management. If you recall, previously we had conversations about a risk management division. So this job description has been reviewed before by you all. It was never approved because we didn't move forward with that division. But we've brought it back with some input from Dr. Bernier, of course, and I think he already mentioned earlier his desire to have a person in this type of position. So any comments?
Ms. Morgan?
So, major function, comprehensive insurance and risk management program. And yet this job description is really risk management, and insurance doesn't appear anywhere else in the job description. I assume that this is comprehensive risk management program and not insurance.
That's correct.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yes, what can be confusing about the word insurance is people start to begin to think about healthcare, medical services, other things. That is a separate part of the Human Resources Division, where it belongs. This is our liability work. This is our insurer when we have a slip and fall accident. This is when an employee gets injured and does workman's comp. This is when somebody calls the superintendent and wants to land their helicopter to recruit an athlete. Those are the people who need to be calling our insurance company, finding out what our liabilities are, and helping us make informed decisions that prevent us from having to spend money after the fact related to a potentially poor decision when risk management wasn't a focus of the decision.
then I would suggest perhaps in the other places where you talk about minimum qualifications and essential job functions, you make reference specifically to that.
Liability insurance.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Be happy to make that change.
thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gittens?
And I think one of the things that's going to help solidify this is the visual. And we had this discussion once before about this risk management position and how it
More than once.
actually touches all areas because of the risk in every specific area. So I think, to me, that will be interesting to see how it lands and how.
It will, we should have just given you the org chart. But I didn't, at this particular moment, it is still in a draft form until these were approved, because if if I didn't get the feeling you were going to move forward with me, then I would go back and revitalize the org chart. So that's why I didn't post it publicly, because there's no sense putting one chart out to then turn around and present another one and present another one. I want to be transparent with the community, but I'd like to be transparent with the community one time. This particular position, risk management, is best housed within the finance division.
Okay, so that okay, I'll hold it. I'll hold it.
Ms. Gittens, any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you. Then, Mr. Dodig and Dr. Bernier?
I would just say that we will amend these with the changes, and they will come before the board on the 28th, the evening
You
of
will
the 28th.
have them in your one-on-ones from me. They'll be all be still marked draft, and I will give you a copy of the draft organizational chart. We can continue those discussions between now and that June board meeting so that we can continue to focus before we're under the posting deadline of having to actually post to make sure that they're prepared for the public to review at least 7 days before your regularly scheduled meeting. I do want to assure all of you, I didn't take bringing job descriptions to you lightly. This is incredible trust in your superintendent. I will find you the very best people I can find you. If I can't find them, I will do the same thing I did with the chief of operations. I advertised and advertised and advertised. I now have a notebook. It's approximately 21 resumes.
At least, yes.
That I have to go through. I'm having HR vet them as well, but I am personally looking at every one of those resumes, because that chief of operations will be a direct report to me. I need to make sure that we're matching up on philosophy and expectations, not only for you, but for me and this community. So I don't take bringing a job description to all of you lightly. Finding the right person to fill these jobs is the most important factor that I have in front of me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dodig, and I hope you have a good evening on your birthday. Okay, next on the agenda is public comment. Attorney Bruno, please.
Thank you. School board policy provides the opportunity at this point in the meeting to address the board concerning any matter on this meeting's agenda. If you completed a public comment card, please put it in the basket provided. Please be advised that the board will not respond during public comment to remarks made by speakers. Speakers who fail to follow proper decorum in the chambers will be ruled out of order. Any speaker continuing with such remark will be required to relinquish the microphone per board policy 1.11 and may be removed from the chambers. There will be one warning. Per board policy 1.11, the time per speaker is 3 minutes. You will find a countdown on the big screens in the front of the room. Once your time has elapsed, the microphone will automatically shut off. Please state your name when you approach the microphone. Madam Chair, there are 4 speakers for public comment.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who did not fill out a blue card and wishes to speak? Okay, seeing none, please proceed. Attorney Bruno.
Thank you. Will the following individuals please line up? Jamie Merchant, Sharon McGill, Denise Nystrom, Christine DeVigili.
We need the light on back there.
Hello, everyone. Sharon McGill. I would just like to take a moment to address the Chief Communications and Government Relations position.
Yes, Ms. McGill, please hold on for a minute because
sure.
we don't have the
time.
By shutting this down, did I mess that up?
You shut everything off?
I'll put my watch out here.
I don't know, I closed the computer, that's all I did.
Okay.
No, that's him in the back.
Okay.
We're going to do it manually,
Ms.
Ms.
Thomas
McGill.
has the time. Thank you.
Okay, that's okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Sharon McGill, and I would just thank you, everyone. And I would just like to address the Chief Communications position. I have had over 25 years of experience in marketing, media, and public relations for Fortune 500 companies. And in my humble opinion, I think that trying to combine this communications position with government relations is not in the best interest of the district. One of the first things I noticed was that there was a huge lack of communication between the district and the public in general. And there were so many opportunities for improvement there to be able to engage the public, to be able to engage business, and try to reach out to people. One of the things I heard today was read those 7,000 young parents who were out in the public. How do we reach them? You need somebody who's in a position to be able to market, and you've got so many different departments within the district that they need marketing, and they need individualized marketing, as well as a whole district perception. And I think trying to combine that with government relations, which, as you know, between legislation, both nationally and locally and statewide, is critical. I mean, that's a critical position. And it's an ongoing position. It goes on every single day. And I don't see how someone would be in a position to be able to combine those two things and do it as effectively as this district really needs it to be done. And so that's just my thought on that. Maybe I need to see the organization chart before I could give a final answer on that, as a couple of people brought up already, to know exactly how you plan on doing it. But I just think that's not in the best interest of the district, and it could be handled in a much better way. Because the one thing about marketing that you learn from the beginning is perception is reality. Doesn't matter what's real, it's what people perceive it to be real. And so the government relations part of it is totally different from dealing with the public and engaging the business community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you hear me okay, or do I need to lower it? Okay.
Yes.
My name's Jamie Merchant. I was requested...
Ms. Merchant, okay, there we go.
Oh, okay. I was requested to read a letter by a student from the LAMP program who encountered problems which impacted her studies. As Ms. Romo gave her presentation, I received more emails with proof of children being turned away from childcare. My name is Nayla DeSouza. I was a student at LAMP. I gave birth to my son, Tony, on November 30th, 2021. During my pregnancy, I had a lot of problems that I had to stay in the hospital for a few days. After my baby was born, I was very attached to him. I stayed with him for my maternity leave to be home with my son. I was determined to go back to school, and LAMP called me to come back because my studies were important and my baby would be near me on campus, and I could go see him when he was hungry because I breastfed. LAMP insisted that I come back to school, and at the beginning of January, I gathered all the papers for the childcare. I did everything I was supposed to do for my baby to be at the childcare at the school. I delivered all the papers back to LAMP so that my baby can be in the childcare. Then they called me one day and said there was no childcare vacancy for my son. There was no vacancy, and they told me there probably won't ever be. That's what happened.
I've heard that.
There was no vacancy for him, even though they wanted me to come back to school. There was nowhere for me to leave my son, so they told me they were going to look for a babysitter on the outside, but that my baby wouldn't stay close to me and I couldn't breastfeed him. Obviously, I wouldn't accept it. I stayed at home with my son. I felt I lived for him, but his father left us, and from there I started to work to get rent money. I still want to finish school. I only had 5 months to finish everything before I graduated. I just want to try again, even if it's a little more complicated, but I know it will be good for my family. These concerns are being brought to light as several current and former employees are stating the reason students like Nayla and others don't have room for their own children in daycare is because employees of LAMP are enrolling their own children into the daycare. I am respectfully requesting that inquiries be made to assure that no student is left behind or is forced to drop out. Nayla has been told in so many words, too bad, so sad, since she turned 18. But the LAMP program failed her, Mary Grace Romo failed her, and this district failed her prior to her turning 18. All she wants is to finish school for the benefit of her son. I do have Nayla's student ID and phone number if you could please reach out to fix this. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. With regard to the Innovation School, as an educator, I have to say I'm really confused. I don't understand the difference between how the Innovation School is going to be delivering instruction versus how the rest of the schools are going to be delivering instruction. It seems to me that good instruction is good instruction, so I'm just letting you know that as a 25-year educator, I'm totally confused by what's going on with that Innovation School. Now I'm going to comment on the textbook adoption process. Last summer, Christy DiVigelli and I organized a review of the grades K through 12 English textbooks, knowing that the district was in the process of purchasing English textbooks. If one understands critical race theory, then one understands that critical race theory was found in the English textbooks according to 40 individuals that volunteered as readers. A report was submitted to the school board to then Dr. Superintendent Savage and Dr. Spiro. Later in the year, the math textbook...
Excuse me, Ms. Nystrom, what part of the agenda are you...
There was a whole presentation on textbook adoption. You gave an entire presentation, and while you were doing it, I started to write this. I think it's highly relevant. In fact, there's a whole information packet about it.
I'm not seeing that.
Somebody sat there, they discussed the whole textbook adoption process.
It may have been during agenda review.
No, maybe. It was during the briefing. Yeah, it was on your agenda.
I asked
Might
a
have been
question about
curriculum.
it.
If you want me to wait till later, I'll wait till later. I'll wait until the public comment if you'd like.
Quit ask a question.
No, I was just saying, I did bring up the topic, I asked a question.
Yeah, I think.
It was discussed for quite a while.
I asked the question about,
The math.
was this the one that had been under review? And then the answer was, yes, we did the process again.
And that was yesterday during the...
No, this was not yesterday.
No, I believe
Today
Ms.
I
Gittens asked me a very specific question today regarding a checklist for textbook adoption, beginning with...
That's correct.
We need a textbook all the way through board approval.
Right.
All right, thank you, Ms. Nystrom. My apologies. Go ahead.
That's okay. Okay, so anyway, we did a textbook review last summer. The English textbooks were read by 40 people. Individual people found critical race theory in there. I think a lot of people don't really understand what critical race theory is, but in any case, later in the year, the math textbook adoption process was beginning, and Christy and I wanted to sit on the committee. Dr. Spiro obliged us, but the training was given during a action meeting, so I could not attend the training. Christy listened to it during that action meeting so she could sit on the math committee. When she was on the math committee, she was one community member among 100 educators, and she sat alone by herself. She commented on this earlier in the year. Now the district is beginning the social studies textbook adoption, and I have read the approved vendors list. Since by law, K-12 education must be civics-based, I was glad to see that the textbook adoption committee will be informed about the difference between CRT and social justices. They are very different. While board policy suggests that the district wants parents to participate, and in my case, community members, they had one person on that entire committee providing little opportunity for anybody to participate. I am requesting, please, Dr. Bernier, if you could have someone examine the makeup of the committees and the way in which members are chosen. Proportionally, the textbook committee had 1% community involvement. And certainly board members will never select parents or community members that they don't like that attend these meetings. As a point of information, I will volunteer to sit on the social studies committee. And you also can purchase books that are not on the list. You just have to pay full price, which we don't know if they're more money or not. Yes, I checked that with the State Education Department. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Christy DiVigili. I too would like to be on that social studies textbook adoption review committee. I just have a few things today. The first is on the risk assessment or the risk management position. Just really, there's a typo in the essential job functions. I'm guessing under where it says endure risks, and I'm pretty sure you guys meant ensure. And then on, which isn't a big deal, but the Chief Communications and Government Relations position, I have to agree with Ms. McGill on most of what she said. And I just have a couple of questions. What is Lean Six Sigma? Where did it come from? How long has it been in the district, and why do we use it? I looked on their website and it was extremely vague. I tried to do some more digging, even more vague. So I would like, I mean, if possible, some clarity on that. And then implement, coordinate, and direct federal and state legislative programs. That I feel like also needs to be expanded on, because that is a very vague statement as well. How is the implementing? I just have lots of questions about that as well. And then to end, I would like to make a comment about the LAMP, about the whole LAMP thing. And my question is, what kind of funding is provided for LAMP employees to enroll their children in that specific daycare? This program obviously receives money for the students to be on campus with their kids, but if students can't enroll their children because an employee has a child that has taken that space, is the employee receiving discounted or free childcare? Those are all my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for your comments, ladies. At this time, it is 4:57, so I would like to recommend that we postpone board member and attorney and superintendent comments until tonight's meeting due to the fact that we're due in the atrium in 3 minutes, and I probably can't make it. Seeing no other business to come before this board, this meeting is adjourned.